Somewhere in the ocean tonight, something is moving. It is larger than any animal that has ever lived on this planet, larger than any dinosaur that ever walked the earth. And it is alive right now, somewhere in the dark water, breathing slowly, moving through a world we can barely picture. It is called a blue whale, and it is real. Hello there, and welcome to Deep Sea Slumber. Tonight, we drift out into open water, far from any shore, and we descend slowly into the blue, following something vast and quiet through the dark. There is a particular kind of astonishment that comes not from things being strange, but from things being true. The blue whale is not a myth. It is not a creature from a story told to explain the sea. It is an animal with a heart and lungs and a history stretching back through time in ways that are difficult to hold in the mind all at once. It breathes air as you do. It was born as you were. It carries warmth inside a body that moves through cold water, and it has been doing this in one form or another for longer than our species has existed. What makes the blue whale remarkable is not only its size, though the size alone is enough to stop ordinary thinking in its tracks. What makes it remarkable is the particular way its life is arranged, the particular logic of it. An animal of almost unimaginable scale, living in a way that seems, at first, like a contradiction, and then, slowly, like something much more interesting than that. We will spend this evening with that animal. We will let the facts arrive gently, one by one, the way things become clear in the dark when your eyes have had time to adjust. There is no hurry here. That is the first thing to know. The ocean does not hurry. The blue whale does not hurry. And tonight, neither do you. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, before we go any further, I want to ask something of your body. Not much, just a small release. Let your shoulders drop. Not forced, not dramatic. Just a quiet permission to let them be lower than they were a moment ago. You may not have noticed how much you were holding until just now. That is all right. Most of us carry tension the way we carry keys, without thinking until we set them down. Let your breath slow, just slightly. You do not need to breathe in any particular way. Let the surface of the day move away above you. Let the light of it fade. We are going somewhere quieter now, somewhere darker and more spacious than the places most of us spend our hours. There is a quality to the deep ocean that is hard to name. It is not emptiness exactly. The deep ocean is full of pressure and cold and slow current and the long memory of everything that has ever sunk to the bottom of it. But it has a quality of space that the surface does not, a kind of patience, a scale that makes human concerns feel appropriately small and not in a frightening way, in the way that looking at stars can make a difficult day feel briefly, gently, less heavy. The blue whale lives in that space. It moves through it with a kind of unhurried authority. Not because it has nothing to fear. The ocean is not gentle in every direction, but because something about the arrangement of its life seems to match the scale of the place it inhabits. It is large the way the ocean is large, slow the way the ocean is slow, quiet in the same frequencies that the ocean is quiet. We will come to understand more of what that means as the night goes on. For now, it is enough to know that somewhere out there, in real water, under a real sky, something enormous is breathing. rising slowly toward the surface, exhaling a column of warm mist into the cold air above the waves, then descending again, unhurried, into the blue. And we are going to follow it. Settle in. Let the weight of the day rest somewhere outside of this moment. Let your breath move at whatever pace feels natural and slow. The ocean is very large, the night is very long, and there is nowhere else to be. Let's begin. To begin with, a blue whale is to begin with scales so large it almost refuses to become a picture. The mind reaches for familiar things and finds that they are too small. A blue whale can grow to around 100 feet long, though many are somewhat shorter, and even that careful number does not settle the matter. 100 feet is a measurement, but it is not yet an experience. It is the length of a body moving through water with the quiet steadiness of something that does not need to hurry. That is why people so often compare blue whales to buses, to airplanes, to rooms, to streets. We borrow the sizes of our own world because ordinary animal language begins to fail. A deer, a horse, even an elephant can be imagined from memory. A blue whale has to be assembled slowly, piece by piece, like a distant landscape. And yet, even comparison has limits. A whale is not a line on pavement or metal at a curb. It is a warm, living mammal with blood moving through it, lungs filling and emptying, muscles working beneath skin, and a life carried inside a shape too large for instinctive understanding. It is not just big. It is difficult. A large blue whale may weigh well over 100 tons. That sentence is simple, but it lands strangely. A body that heavy should seem almost impossible, and on land it would be. Water changes the terms. Buoyancy holds what gravity would otherwise punish, and the sea becomes not just habitat, but permission. The only place where a mammal can become this vast and still remain graceful. What makes this so remarkable is that size here is not an accident of excess. The whale is not oversized in the way an object can be oversized. Every part of it belongs to a body plan that solved, over immense time, the problem of growing huge without becoming trapped by that hugeness. In water, mass can turn from burden into momentum. That may be one of the ocean's oldest invitations. Where the sea supports, life can enlarge. Not endlessly and not without cost, but far beyond what land can usually allow. A blue whale carries that possibility to its edge, as though evolution once asked how large a breathing, warm-blooded animal could become, and the answer drifted out here. Its tongue alone can weigh as much as an elephant. Again, the mind pauses. A tongue belongs, in our ordinary sense, to speech, taste, the small motions inside a mouth. In a blue whale, it becomes a structure of immense muscular weight, part of an apparatus built not for chewing, but for handling enormous volumes of seawater and prey. The familiar body part remains, but scale transforms its meaning. Yet this is often what great size does. It keeps the outline of something known while changing the experience of it completely. A tongue, a heart, a lung, a rib. The words stay the same, but the animal stretches them until language itself feels slightly too narrow. The heart is another such word. A blue whale's heart can weigh around 400 pounds, sometimes more, and its beat can travel through a chest broad enough to feel almost architectural. In a resting animal near the surface, the rhythm may slow to only a handful of beats each minute. During deep dives, it can become slower still. That slowness is not weakness. It is control. A giant body does not live by rushing. blood must move efficiently across great distances, carrying oxygen through a living geography of muscle, blubber, bone, and organ. And the whale's circulation is shaped around patience. What would be alarming in a smaller mammal is ordinary in this one. Researchers studying blue whale physiology have found heart rhythms that seem almost unreal when compared with ours. At depth, the intervals between beats can become long enough to notice as silence. Then, near the surface, the rate rises again as the lungs refill and the body prepares for another descent. The same heart lives in different tempos, depending on where the whale is in the water column. In other words, even time behaves differently inside a giant. The pulse of such an animal is not simply slower than ours. It belongs to another pace of being, one adjusted to pressure, breath, and the economics of great mass. A blue whale is large in space, but also in rhythm. And that rhythm may be part of why the animal feels so difficult to imagine clearly. We are used to thinking of life as quickened by urgency. Small creatures flicker, medium creatures stride. But a blue whale can let its size become a kind of still authority, where each action is measured because waste would be costly, and calm is powerful. Its blood travels through vessels so large that a person could place a hand against some of them and feel they are looking at plumbing more than anatomy. Yet they are anatomy. They are soft, living conduits made by cells, inherited through lineage, maintained moment by moment. This matters because the whale is not machine-like, despite the scale that tempts such comparisons. It is vulnerable tissue, warm and alive, enlarged far beyond human proportion, but never hardened into mechanism. That is part of the deeper strangeness. Blue whales are not monuments. They are mammals. They nurse their young, hold their breath, surface for air, and carry within them the same basic mammalian inheritance that runs through much smaller creatures, including us. The pattern is familiar. The dimensions are not. The lungs, too, belong to this impossible familiarity. A blue whale's lungs are not the largest in the animal kingdom by simple volume alone in the way people sometimes assume, because lungs must fit the body's proportions and function efficiently rather than theatrically. But they are immense organs, able to move extraordinary amounts of air in a short surfacing interval. That is why a blue whale's breath can seem so forceful from above the water. When it surfaces, it exhales and inhales with speed and precision, turning a brief moment at the surface into a rapid exchange. Some estimates suggest it may replace most of the air in its lungs with each breath, far more completely than humans do. We leave much of our air behind with every inhale and exhale. The whale is less wasteful. What makes this meaningful is not only the size of the lungs, but the efficiency of the whole system around them. A giant body cannot afford clumsy breathing. The whale must gather oxygen quickly, store it well, and spend it carefully below. So the respiratory system, blood chemistry, and muscles work together in a design shaped by long dives and large distances. Even here, scale is not just more. It is stricter. The bigger the body, the more the details matter. Vastness survives not by being vague, but by being exact. A blue whale calf enters the world already larger than most animals will ever become. At birth, a calf may be around 20 to 25 feet long and weigh several tons. That would be astonishing enough on its own, but what unsettles the imagination is the implication hidden inside it. If the newborn is already enormous, then the mother must be larger still by such a margin that the calf's own huge body counts as a beginning. Size, in blue whales, starts where our normal comparisons end, and growth does not proceed gently. In early life, a calf may gain weight at a pace that sounds almost abstract, fed by rich milk and carried through water beside its mother. The body expands quickly because it must. Warmth, travel, strength, and survival all depend on building mass in a world too open for small weakness. There is something quiet and profound in that beginning. Even the earliest stage of blue whale life happens at a scale that would be final greatness for other creatures. It reminds us that magnitude is not one moment in this species. It is the whole story from first breath onward. The head alone can occupy roughly a quarter of the body's length. That proportion gives the whale much of its visual power. Seen in profile, the long, broad head stretches forward in a way that seems almost excessive until one remembers what it must do. This is the front end of an animal built to take in huge volumes of seawater during feeding, to house sensory structures, baleen, and the massive bones and tissues that support them. The head is large because the task is large. Yet the size of the head also changes the emotional shape of the animal. We often read faces by closeness and concentration. Eyes near a nose, expressions gathered in a small space, features arranged for quick recognition. In a blue whale, the face is dispersed across a great distance. The eye is small relative to the body. The mouth line extends vast and hidden. Recognition becomes slower, quieter, less about expression than presence. That may be why blue whales can feel both intimate and unreachable. They are mammals, and we sense that kinship. But their proportions place their lives at a distance from our instincts. They are not mysterious because they are alien. They are mysterious because they are familiar forms stretched into another scale of existence. Even the sound of a heartbeat changes when the body becomes this large. Lower frequencies travel through larger spaces, and the internal noises of circulation, motion, and breathing must belong to a creature that is, in a practical sense, carrying a small room's worth of chest and abdomen through the sea. Scientists can model such things. The imagination still trails behind. Imagine standing beside a living wall that breathes, not a wall of stone, but of skin, muscle, fat, and hidden bone, marked by subtle color and faint mottling, with the sea lifting around it. Beside such a body, the category of animal begins to loosen. You are not looking at a larger version of something ordinary. You are looking at a scale of life that changes the meaning of nearby. That shift matters. Many animals can be measured. Only a few force the mind to revise itself. A blue whale does not merely occupy space. It alters the proportions of thought, asking us to hold in one picture the tenderness of mammal life and the dimensions of something almost geographic. And yet its tissues remain soft. The skin can be scarred. The body can tire. The lungs must rise for air. Greatness here is not invulnerability. It is a form of life balanced carefully inside limits, no matter how immense it appears from the outside. Its arteries flex, its muscles warm, its ribs curve around organs that, despite their size, still depend on oxygen arriving in time. This is why scale becomes so moving when considered closely. The whale is not large in the abstract. It is large in flesh. That is often the final threshold the mind resists. Numbers are easier than embodiment. We can say 100 feet, 100 tons, 400 pounds of heart, an elephant-sized tongue. But the deeper truth is stranger than any comparison. All of it belongs to one continuous living self, moving through dark water under its own power. A body so large begins to exceed memory. Most of us have never stood beside anything alive that compares. So we build the whale inwardly from fragments, a blow seen at a distance, a museum skeleton, a line in a book, a recording of a low call, a photograph with a boat nearby for scale. None of these is enough. Together, they still leave a gap, but perhaps that gap is part of the experience. Some forms of life are not meant to fit neatly inside the mind. They remain slightly beyond us, not because they cannot be known, but because knowing them requires humility. The blue whale can be measured with great care. It can still remain larger than our habits of thought, and there is something restful in that. Not confusion, not failure. Just the quiet recognition that the world still contains beings whose reality is wider than our first imagination of it. The whale does not shrink to become manageable. It goes on existing at its full size, whether or not we can hold the whole picture at once. So the mind learns another way. It stops trying to seize the entire animal in one grasp. It notices a fluke, a breath, the rise of a back, the length of a jaw, the interval between heartbeats, the vast patience of a body built at ocean scale. Piece by piece, a truer picture begins to settle. Not complete, just sufficient. And in the dark water, sufficient is enough. But the body has more surprises yet. Once the mind has adjusted a little to the sheer size of a blue whale, another question arrives very softly. What kind of body can carry such enormity with grace? Not a body made merely larger, but a body reworked almost everywhere, until mass itself can drift, feed, turn and endure in water that is cold and vast and always pressing in. That is the quieter marvel. A blue whale's throat is folded like an enormous set of pleats. Those grooves run from the lower jaw down along the underside of the body, and at rest they lie gathered, almost modestly, against the whale's shape. Yet when the animal feeds, they can expand outward into a great pouch, allowing the mouth and throat region to swell with an immense volume of seawater and krill. The skin and tissue there are not loose by accident. They are engineered by evolution for controlled enlargement, strong enough to stretch and then settle back again. A giant does not simply open its mouth. It briefly becomes larger still. That matters because blue whales do not nibble. They engulf. In one feeding lunge, the whale surges forward and takes in a moving part of the sea, a volume of water so large that the body must be built in advance for that temporary burden. The pleats are part storage, part flexibility, part solution to a problem that only appears once an animal becomes so large and chooses to eat something so small. Form follows appetite here, but appetite follows ecology. The body becomes a vessel shaped by swarms. And that is what makes the grooves feel so strange to contemplate. They are not decoration and not excess. They are folded possibility, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment when abundance appears. Even the outer surface of the whale carries a lesson in patience. Much of what matters stays gathered until the right moment comes. Inside that mouth, there are no teeth. Instead, there is baleen, a series of long keratin plates hanging from the upper jaw in dense curtains. Keratin is the same broad family of material that forms human fingernails and hair, though here it is arranged into something very different. Flexible, durable fringes that can hold back prey while water escapes. Each plate has a smooth outer edge and a fibrous inner fringe. Together, they make a living sieve. The mechanism is gentle, though the scale is not. After the whale takes in its vast mouthful, it uses the tongue and throat structures to press water outward through the baleen. Seawater slips away. Krill remain behind, caught against those frayed inner fringes, and then are swallowed in great quantities. It is filtration on a scale so large that the mind almost resists it. A body the size of a small building feeds not by tearing, but by straining. What makes this more than a feeding trick is what it says about power. Predators are often imagined as animals equipped with sharper tools, stronger bites, quicker attacks. The blue whale reaches size beyond ordinary comparison, yet its feeding apparatus is soft in principle. Not claws, not fangs, a comb, a curtain, a sieve. Strength here is joined to delicacy. The largest animal known lives by sorting the small from the smaller. And baleen itself is an old answer. The ancestors of whales had teeth. Over long stretches of evolutionary time, some lineages shifted toward filter feeding, and the mouth changed with the life it served. That means the blue whale's jaw carries history inside function. It is not only a machine for feeding in the present ocean, it is also a record of ancient experiments in how to live. The mouth remembers other bodies, yet a mouth that expands so widely creates another problem. Water is heavy. When a blue whale lunges into a dense patch of prey, it takes on a temporary load that would challenge the structure of any animal. The lower jaw bones are long and somewhat flexible compared with what people often expect from bone, and the tissues around the mouth and throat help absorb and manage immense mechanical stress. Scientists have studied the sensory structures near the chin that may help coordinate this expansion because timing matters. The whale must open, engulf, slow and close in a sequence that uses force without wasting it. Efficiency is not optional at this scale. It is survival made elegant. That is why the blue whale's whole body is shaped less like a fortress than a solution. From a distance, its form appears almost simple, long, tapered, smooth, without many external protrusions. But simplicity in nature often means many difficulties have already been solved. The body narrows toward the tail, curves cleanly through the water, and avoids the kinds of drag that would make long travel costly. For an animal living in a dense medium, shape is destiny. To move well is to be spared countless small expenses. A whale does not move through water the way land animals move through air. It negotiates resistance every moment. So the blue whale's smoothness is not emptiness of design. It is refined intention. The small dorsal fin set far back on the body does little to interrupt flow. The flippers guide and stabilize. The tail flukes provide thrust in slow, powerful strokes. Almost everything visible on the outside speaks the same quiet language. Keep drag low. Keep motion steady. Let distance become possible. And yet this streamlined shape holds another contradiction. The whale looks solid, almost monumental, but much of its success depends on yielding in the right places. The throat pleats, expand. The baleen flexes. The blubber compresses and insulates. Even the chest and lungs must accommodate enormous pressure changes through dives. The body is large, but it is not rigid. It survives by combining strength with give. Blubber is not just fat. It is infrastructure. Beneath the skin lies a thick layer of lipid-rich tissue that stores energy, helps streamline the body, and slows the loss of heat into cold water. In the ocean, warmth does not stay with a body easily. Water draws heat away far faster than air does. For a warm-blooded mammal, that is a constant challenge. The blue whale carries insulation beneath its skin, the way a world carries weather beneath its clouds. This layer also changes the meaning of abundance. During productive feeding seasons, the whale can build reserves that support long travel and leaner times. That stored energy becomes migration, endurance, and the ability to inhabit parts of the year when food is less available. In other words, blubber is not simply padding. It is time made physical. The whale can carry summer inside itself. There is something moving in that idea. Life does not always store what it needs in obvious forms. A season of plenty becomes warmth months later. A feeding ground becomes a journey. A cloud of krill becomes insulation beneath blue-grey skin in distant water. The body keeps translating one condition into another. It turns brief abundance into patient continuity. Warmth, then, is partly a question of covering, but it is also a question of circulation. A blue whale's blood must travel through an immense body, delivering oxygen, carrying away carbon dioxide, moving heat from place to place. Its cardiovascular system is scaled for that challenge, with a powerful heart and a network of vessels adapted to the realities of diving, surfacing, and conserving oxygen. Different tissues do not all receive the same priority at every moment. During dives, blood flow can be adjusted toward essential organs. A giant body becomes selective. That selectivity is a kind of quiet intelligence built into flesh. The whale does not need every region to behave the same way at the same time. It can redistribute, conserve, and endure. That is what large life often requires. Not constant maximum effort, but careful rationing. Even power needs management. Even abundance must be organized from within. Some blood vessels also help with heat exchange. In certain parts of the body, arteries and veins can lie close together, allowing warmth moving out from the body core to transfer to cooler blood returning inward. This reduces heat loss, especially toward the body's outer regions. It is a subtle design, easy to overlook beside larger facts, but such subtleties matter. The ocean rewards small efficiencies repeatedly until they become the difference between strain and steadiness. What makes this beautiful is how unspectacular it seems. Heat retained, energy saved, flow adjusted. None of it appears dramatic from the surface. Yet much of life depends not on visible heroics, but on countless hidden calibrations that keep a body within livable limits. The whale's greatness is not only in how large it is in how much quiet regulation that largeness requires. The lungs, too, must serve a difficult life. A blue whale breathes air, but spends much of its life submerged, carrying that air down into a realm of pressure and cold. Whale lungs are not simply enlarged versions of ours. Their structure and the surrounding anatomy help them tolerate deep compression and efficient gas exchange near the surface between dives. The rib cage has flexibility. The respiratory system is built for repeated transitions between open air and descending water. The border between the two worlds is crossed again and again. That is why a breath for a whale is both ordinary and profound. At the surface, the inhale can be rapid and effective, restoring reserves in a short interval before another descent. It is not a leisurely pause, so much as a practiced recovery. The body has evolved to make use of brief access to air. A creature fully at home in the sea remains tied to the sky by lungs. It carries an ancient inheritance from land, even while living almost entirely beneath the horizon. And that inheritance has not been discarded. It has been revised. Whales did not begin as sea creatures. Their distant ancestors walked. Over time, limbs changed. Nostrils migrated upward. The spine and tail took on new roles, and the whole body became less suited to gravity on land and more suited to buoyancy in water. The blue whale is one outcome of that long return. Its body is an old mammal body rewritten for immersion. You can feel that rewriting in the bones. Whale bones must support immense forces, but in water, they do not bear weight the way elephant bones or human bones do. Buoyancy changes the problem. The skeleton becomes less a set of pillars and more a framework for muscle attachment, movement, feeding mechanics, and protection of vital structures. Bones can be massive without serving the same purpose they would on land. The ocean allows gigantism by carrying what land would force an animal to carry alone. In other words, the sea helps hold the whale. That is one of the deepest truths beneath its size. A blue whale is enormous, but it is not separate from its medium. Water supports, slows, lifts, resists, and shapes every movement. The body is built with the ocean assumed. Remove the water, and the design no longer makes sense. Some creatures inhabit a place, others seem partly made by it. The blue whale feels like both at once. Even the skin participates in this conversation with water. Its surface is smooth, often mottled in blue-grey patterns that can look almost silver beneath shifting light. Small organisms may live on or mark parts of it, and scars can remain as records of contact, age, or encounter. Yet the general effect is one of continuity. Skin becomes boundary, but a boundary that meets the sea without hard separation. There is no armor here in the usual sense. The whale is protected more by size, tissue, and form than by hardness. And yet, softness should not be mistaken for vulnerability alone. Soft tissues in the right arrangement can do what rigid coverings cannot. They can flex under pressure, store energy, shape flow, insulate warmth, and expand to hold astonishing quantities of water and prey. The blue whale reminds us that a body can become immense, not by turning to stone, but by learning how to yield. Sometimes the strongest design is the one that knows where not to resist. The tail tells the same story in another language. Broad horizontal flukes lift and drive with each downward and upward stroke, powered by muscles running along the body axis. Unlike fish, which move side to side, whales move up and down, a signature of their mammalian ancestry carried into the sea. The motion is deliberate. A great body advances through repeated arcs, each one transferring force into water with remarkable economy. Distance is made from rhythm. That rhythm matters because every stroke has a cost. For an animal of this size, wasted effort accumulates quickly. So the body is tuned toward efficiency at nearly every level. Shape reducing drag, tissues storing heat, baleen filtering dense prey, circulation rationing oxygen, lungs recovering fast at the surface, tail strokes turning power into steady travel. The whale is not simply big, it is integrated. The parts agree with one another, and that may be the deepest wonder in its architecture. We often imagine gigantism as a kind of exaggeration, as though nature had taken an ordinary creature and enlarged it past reason. But the blue whale is not an overstatement. It is a coherence. Every major feature has been drawn into relation with the others until size stops seeming reckless and begins to seem strangely composed. The body is not burdened by its scale. It has learned how to carry it. So when a blue whale passes through dark water, what moves is not just mass. It is a pleated throat waiting for abundance, a mouth lined with living curtains, a hidden layer of stored summer, blood finding its priorities, lungs prepared for pressure and return, bones held by buoyancy, a long, smooth form giving itself again and again to the patient logic of water. The giant is not crude. It is precise. And after a while, that precision grows quiet. The mind stops trying to measure every feature and begins instead to feel the overall rightness of the design. This is a body built not to hurry, not to struggle against its world more than necessary, but to meet it with efficiencies so deep they almost look effortless. Vastness settles into function. Function settles into grace. The whale goes on, and the ocean, for a little while, seems to have shaped something large enough to resemble itself. But a body, no matter how beautifully built, is always a question about energy. And with a blue whale, the answer sounds almost wrong. The largest animal ever known lives on creatures small enough to gather by the thousands in a single patch of water. Krill are shrimp-like crustaceans, often only a few inches long, translucent and faintly shining. And when blue whales feed well, all that giant architecture is sustained by these small drifting bodies, gathered into dense living clouds by cold, productive seas. That is the arrangement. It feels backward at first. We expect great size to require great prey. We imagine teeth, pursuit, force, some equal contest between one large body and another, because the human mind often assumes that power must feed on power. Yet the blue whale turns toward abundance instead. A krill on its own is almost nothing to a whale. One bite would not even deserve the word bite. What makes this possible is not the value of one animal, but the value of a swarm so concentrated that the water itself seems thickened by life, sometimes extending for long distances, held together by currents, temperature layers, food availability, and the shared drifting of countless bodies. Scale meets scale. The ocean does this often. It scatters life widely, then gathers it suddenly. In a vast place where emptiness can seem to dominate, nourishment often arrives not as a steady presence, but as a dense event, a temporary richness that forms where conditions align and then thins again into the larger blue distance. That is why timing matters. Blue whales do not feed this way everywhere. They depend on places and seasons where krill become abundant enough to make the effort worthwhile. Cold waters, especially in productive summer feeding grounds, can bloom with microscopic plant life, and that phytoplankton becomes the beginning of a chain that rises into the bodies of krill, then into the whale itself. Tiny green light, then tiny drifting animals, then the largest body. There is something patient in that ladder. The whale is immense, but its life still begins each season with sunlight touching the sea. Even a giant depends on things too small to see clearly from a distance, as though size does not free a creature from dependence, but ties it more deeply into the hidden work beneath the surface. Bigness does not escape delicacy. A blue whale feeds by lunging. That single word hardly seems equal to the mechanics of it. The whale finds a dense patch of krill, accelerates toward it, opens its mouth to an astonishing width, and takes in an enormous mass of water along with the swarm, while the pleated grooves beneath the throat expand outward like something unfolding from another scale of anatomy. For a moment, the animal becomes a moving net. It is an expensive act. Swimming faster costs energy, and opening such a large mouth creates drag. The whale is not gliding then, not conserving, but committing itself to a brief effort that must return more energy than it spends, which means each lunge is a kind of calculation written in muscle, timing, and the density of life ahead. Not every patch is enough. That matters more than it first appears. A blue whale cannot simply graze at random through empty water and hope size will solve the problem. Its feeding strategy depends on finding prey dense enough to justify the effort, which is why the whale's enormous body is linked so closely to places where the sea gathers small lives into rich, compact concentrations. Giant life needs crowded luck, and yet luck is not the whole story. The whale is not wandering blindly into food. It senses, tracks, and responds to where krill are likely to be, reading the structure of the water through experience, perception, and the learned rhythms of productive regions where feeding has been worthwhile before. Vastness does not erase knowledge. Once the mouth is full, another strange stage begins. The whale closes its jaws and uses its massive tongue and throat structures to force the water back out. What remains behind is the reason the whole system works. Baleen, those long keratin plates hanging from the upper jaw, frayed at the inner edges into a dense curtain that lets water pass while trapping krill inside. A sieve made for the sea. So the meal is not taken one creature at a time. It is strained from water. The whale engulfs a moving portion of the ocean, then separates nourishment from the surrounding flood, keeping the tiny bodies that matter and returning the rest to the sea in a rush that must feel to nearby life like weather passing through. Feeding becomes filtration. There is a deep elegance in that. The mouth is not armed like a predator's mouth in the familiar mammal sense. It is built less for seizing than for gathering, less for tearing than for sorting, and that changes the whole feeling of the animal, turning enormity away from the single victim and toward the shimmering mathematics of multitudes. The whale hunts density. That phrase may be the clearest way to say it. Not speed, not individual prey, density. A blue whale succeeds when the ocean becomes locally rich enough that one opening of the mouth can capture a meaningful fraction of a swarm. And in those moments, the difference between hunger and abundance is measured not by drama, but by concentration. Enough, all at once. Krill themselves are quiet little engines of this story. They feed largely on phytoplankton, especially in cold, nutrient-rich waters, where light returns strongly enough to drive blooms near the surface. Many species form swarms for reasons that may include reproduction, feeding efficiency, and protection. And those swarms can become so dense that they create one of the great conversion points in the ocean, where tiny bodies gather energy into forms large animals can use. They are small, but they are not trivial. In other words, the whale is not feeding low so much as feeding wisely. Each krill is a small packet of stored ocean productivity. When millions are assembled together, the sea has already done much of the collecting, and the whale arrives as a specialist in receiving what currents, light, plankton, and swarm behavior have slowly prepared. The meal begins long before the lunge. That is one of the stranger truths of marine life. An act that looks sudden may depend on processes unfolding across weeks, distances, and food webs too dispersed for the eye to hold at once. By the time the whale opens its mouth, sunlight has already become phytoplankton. Phytoplankton has already become krill, and the ocean has already spent time gathering what the whale is about to claim in seconds. The feast is patient before it is dramatic. Because of this, feeding can be seasonal in a profound way. Blue whales often build much of their yearly energy during times when prey is especially abundant. They travel to colder, richer waters where krill concentrations can support repeated lunges, and there the body does what it was built to do, converting brief encounters with dense prey into the stored energy needed for migration, maintenance, and life at a scale that never stops being expensive. Summer becomes a treasury. There is a practical tenderness in that pattern. The whale does not demand constant plenty from every part of the ocean. It lives instead by meeting the sea at its richest moments, taking in enough when abundance arrives, then carrying that gain across long distances and leaner times, as though its size is paired with an ability to trust the year rather than the hour. A seasonal faith. Of course, this strategy has limits. If krill are scattered, the lunge may cost more than it returns. Researchers who study blue whale feeding have found that the economics can be surprisingly exact, because the whale's great mass means that even a successful design must remain disciplined, taking in extraordinary amounts only where extraordinary density makes the effort profitable. Even giants live by margins. That fact changes the feeling of the whale again. Enormous size can seem like freedom from ordinary constraints. Yet the blue whale is not beyond arithmetic, but deep inside it, bound to calculations of drag, speed, prey density, and energetic reward, so that one of the grandest beings on Earth is, in some essential way, still negotiating the same old terms of survival as anything else. Life keeps its books. And still, the result is abundance on a scale almost difficult to picture. A feeding blue whale may consume several tons of krill in a day when conditions are good. Not because each mouthful is rich in itself, but because the animal repeats the process where prey is dense, turning countless tiny gains into a daily intake large enough to keep a body of impossible dimensions in motion. Greatness accrues grain by grain. There is something almost humbling in that. The world's largest animal is not sustained by singular grandeur, but by accumulation. By enough small bodies, enough successful lunges, enough hours in productive water, enough summer, enough patience, enough return on effort, until the immense fact of the whale is built, meal by meal, from innumerable pieces of delicate life. Magnitude is assembled from fragments. That may be true more widely than we like to admit. What seems self-contained often rests on hidden collectives. The blue whale makes this visible because the contrast is so stark. A creature longer than many rooms, nourished by swarms that glitter like dust in water, reminding us that scale in nature does not always climb by eating its own size. Sometimes it rises by harvesting abundance. And yet, harvesting is not the same as dominating. The whale does not empty the sea by force. It joins a system already pulsing with growth and movement, depending on places where productivity runs high enough to support both the swarms and the giant that follows them. And in that sense, the whale is less an overlord than an expression of plenty. A body shaped by rich water. Imagine the mouth opening in a green-blue field of krill. The swarm flashes and shifts. The throat pleats billow, the lower jaw swings, and for an instant the boundary between animal and ocean becomes difficult to locate. Because so much water enters the whale that feeding resembles the sea briefly passing through a living structure built to sort nourishment from volume. Inside and outside blur. That blurring says something important. A blue whale is not merely in the ocean the way a land animal stands in air. Its feeding makes clear how intimate the relationship is, how water is not just surrounding medium, but part of the act itself, the necessary carrier of prey, the material that must be taken in and expelled so life can be filtered from it. The sea enters the meal. This is why baleen matters beyond anatomy. It represents a different answer to the problem of getting large. Not claws, not sharp teeth, not the pursuit of fewer, bigger victims, but a broad, quiet apparatus for taking small life in huge numbers, which suggests that evolution does not honor our instinct for spectacle so much as it honors what works repeatedly in a given world. Efficiency can look strange, and the strangeness grows the longer one sits with it. To become the largest known animal by specializing in tiny prey is almost a paradox. Yet, perhaps, it only feels paradoxical because we are trained to think of importance as singular and visible, when the ocean often builds its greatest realities from dispersed, repeated, nearly ignorable forms gathered into sudden enough. The whale lives inside that lesson. Krill also carry a faint visual poetry. In certain light, they can appear glassy, pale, almost lit from within. Their swarms are not bright in the human sense of lanterns or sparks, but they can give the impression of suspended flecks, small bodies catching and releasing light as they turn together beneath the surface. Food as shimmer. For the whale, of course, this is not poetry. It is work and opportunity and the brief alignment of body with abundance. Still, for us, there is something quietly moving in the thought that a giant may spend its richest hours moving through clouds of little translucent animals, filtering brightness and life from the same cold water that carries them. The meal glows softly in the mind. Scientists continue to study the details of how blue whales choose feeding depths, assess prey quality, and adjust their behavior to changing conditions. Some questions remain open. What sensory cues matter most in different regions? How flexible feeding patterns are across populations? And how changing ocean conditions alter the old geography of krill are all part of an unfinished picture, which feels appropriate for an animal so large that certainty still trails behind it. Even now, some part remains hidden. Perhaps that is fitting. The central fact is already enough to sit with. A giant survives by finding the right thickness of small life in cold water, then opening itself wide to the sea, trusting a sieve, a swarm, and a season to sustain what seems too large to sustain. It works, and because it works, the whale can keep traveling. It can carry summer south or north inside flesh, laid down from tiny bodies. It can leave the richest waters for a time and still remain what it is, because feeding here is never just about the present mouthful, but about storing enough of the season to endure distance, change, and the quieter stretches between abundance. A meal becomes a journey. That may be the deepest wonder in it. The whale's size does not make it separate from the small. It makes it dependent on the small in a way so complete that the largest life we know becomes, in the end, a monument to aggregation, to plankton blooms, to swarms, to repeating abundance, to the quiet power of things that would be easy to dismiss one by one. Grandeur rests on the minute, and so the image softens, not a monster of appetite, but a patient body moving through rich water, opening, taking in, straining, swallowing, then gliding on through the cold with the slow assurance of something perfectly matched to a world where tiny lives, gathered together, can hold up the immense. The sea keeps answering sighs with swarms. After a while, even that impossibility begins to feel natural. A mouth full of ocean, a curtain of baleen, a giant sustained by drifting light-fed multitudes, moving on through water that is briefly full, then wide and quiet again. And when enough food has been gathered, the largest body on Earth does something surprisingly gentle with that power. It travels. Not quickly, at least not in the way speed is usually imagined. A blue whale does not seem to hurry across the sea so much as continue through it, day after day, with the patient authority of something built for distance rather than display. What makes this movement so striking is that it joins two scales at once, the small rhythm of each breath and dive, and the vast seasonal turning of entire ocean basins. The route is long. In the productive months, cold water can hold a kind of promise. Nutrients rise, tiny lives gather. The swarms that sustain a giant body become dense enough to matter, and the whale remains where food is rich, because richness in the sea is never spread evenly for very long. That is why summer feeding grounds are often far from the places where calves are born. Then the pattern changes. The water that offered abundance also carries a cost, especially for a newborn body that has not yet gathered thick reserves and has not yet learned the long discipline of ocean life. So the adults, and especially pregnant females, begin to turn toward warmer regions where a calf can enter a gentler sea, even if that sea offers less to eat. In other words, migration is not only movement toward a place, it is movement between needs. This is one of the quiet truths of blue whale life. No single water can be everything at once. A place rich enough to feed the largest animal on Earth may be too cold for the first delicate months of a calf's life, and a place warm enough for birth may be poor country for such an immense appetite. So the whale lives not in one sea, but in a sequence of seas. Across the North Pacific, some blue whales spend the feeding season in cooler, productive waters off California, farther north toward British Columbia, or along the edges where cold currents and upwelling bring life upward. In the southern hemisphere, others range through the vast krill-rich waters nearer Antarctica, then later move toward lower latitudes. These populations do not all follow the same lines, and some routes remain only partly known, because much of this travel happens beyond our view, over distances too large for casual witnessing. Yet the pattern is there. It appears in long arcs rather than tidy tracks. A whale leaves one region, crosses open water, and weeks later is found elsewhere, not by chance, but with the regularity of an old habit carried in muscle, memory, and response to changing seas. The ocean has no roads, and yet lives move through it as though some hidden geography were written in temperature, current, sound, and season. Scientists piece these journeys together from photographs of mottled flanks, from satellite tags that remain for a time, from listening stations that catch low calls in distant waters, and from years of patient comparison. A point here, another there, a reappearance months later in a place that fits a larger pattern. What emerges is not a single universal map, but many maps, faint and living, each belonging to a population shaped by its own ocean. That matters. Blue whales are one species, but their waters differ and behavior bends around geography. A whale in the eastern North Pacific moves through a different arrangement of coasts, currents, and seasonal blooms than a whale in the Indian Ocean or the Southern Ocean. Migration is not one script repeated everywhere. It is one ancient problem solved in local ways. Picture the beginning of such a journey without turning it into drama. The whale has fed for weeks in cool, productive water. The lunges have been worthwhile. The body has taken in what the season could give. Then one day, or over several quiet days, the feeding becomes less central than forward motion, and the direction of travel begins to matter more than the next dense patch of prey. The sea still holds food, but the body has already begun answering a different question. The movement itself can seem almost modest when watched from the surface. A back rises in a smooth, dark curve. A small fin appears far behind. The blow lifts, hangs pale for a moment, and disappears. Then there is the long interval before the body returns, a little farther along than before, and then farther still, until the observer begins to understand that the whale is not circling a feeding area now. It is leaving. Days gather into miles, miles gather into a season, and the whale goes on. There is a calmness in this that is easy to miss because the distances are so large. We are tempted to think of migration as an epic event, and in one sense it is. But to the whale, it may feel less like adventure than continuation. This is where the wonder deepens. A journey that spans hundreds or thousands of miles may not be experienced as spectacle from within. It may be felt as the steady maintenance of a life that depends on timing. How does it know where to go? The honest answer is that we do not fully know, and the not knowing is part of the beauty here. Blue whales may use several kinds of information at once. The shape of coastlines, the pull of currents, remembered temperatures, the distribution of food, the position of the sun, perhaps even features of Earth's magnetic field. Sound may matter too, because low-frequency calls can travel far through water and turn distance into something less empty. What makes this mysterious is not that whales possess some magic sense beyond nature. It is that nature itself is richer than our everyday noticing. A body moving through the sea can read differences so slight they seem to us almost non-existent. A change in water mass, a shift in salinity, a familiar corridor of temperature lying beneath the surface. The map may not be visual at all. It may be felt, and memory likely plays its part. A young whale traveling beside its mother does not inherit a paper chart. It inherits exposure. The route is learned as weather is learned, by being within it long enough that what once seemed vast and undifferentiated begins to separate into meaningful kinds of water. Here the current sets a certain way. Here the coast lies over the horizon. Here the season turns. That kind of knowledge is patient knowledge. It does not arrive all at once, and it cannot be hurried by intelligence alone. It is made from repetition, from surviving enough cycles to let the basin become familiar, and from carrying previous journeys inside the body until direction begins to feel less like choice than recognition. In other words, migration may be a form of memory stretched across years. There are times during these passages when the whale moves alone, or seems to. Blue whales are not usually gathered in the tightly coordinated groups seen in some other cetaceans. Their social world is often looser, more spacious, with individuals spread across distances that may still be bridged by sound. That spaciousness fits the open ocean. It is a life in which companionship does not always require closeness. yet they are not sealed away from one another in some lonely blue emptiness. Calls carry, paths overlap. In productive places, several whales may feed in the same broad region, surfacing within sight, but not in constant contact. During migration or in breeding areas, individuals may come nearer, males may follow females, and acoustic presence may become especially important. The ocean is vast, but it is not silent, and it is not socially blank. A call sent into open water has a different meaning when the sender is traveling. It is not only expression, it may be placement. It may be announcement, orientation, contact, or something we have not learned to name. That is why migration is also a story about relationship, even when the bodies themselves seem widely dispersed. Distance does not erase connection, it changes its medium. Sometimes the route follows continental margins, where the underwater landscape rises and falls in long, hidden contours. Sometimes it crosses broader open stretches where there are fewer obvious boundaries from our perspective. But even there, the water is not truly featureless. It forms layers, fronts, eddies, corridors of warmth and cold, moving structures that can guide life as surely as mountain passes. Guide animals on land. The whale moves through a changing architecture, and it must do so efficiently. A giant body can travel far with remarkable economy once in motion, but energy still matters, especially when leaving behind the richest feeding waters. This is not wandering, it is budgeting on a grand scale. The stored gains of one season help carry the whale through another, and migration becomes a way of converting brief abundance into enduring life. Pregnancy makes that conversion even more demanding. A female heading toward calving waters is carrying not only herself, but the future weight of a newborn that will need warmth, milk, and protection through its first weeks. The route, then, is also an act of preparation. Before the calf exists in open water, the journey has already begun on its behalf. There is tenderness in that, though it is a tenderness expressed through distance rather than through stillness. The mother does not build a nest. She crosses an ocean. She enters warmer seas because the conditions there are more forgiving for a young body, and in doing so, she reveals something about care at the scale of whales. Care can be geographic. Migration also shapes the sea itself, though quietly. When a blue whale spends time in one region feeding, then later moves to another, it carries nutrients within its own body across wide distances. Its waste can fertilize surface waters. Its presence affects where energy moves through the system. Even at this immense scale, the whale is not outside ecology looking down on it. It is inside the exchange, participating in it. That means the route between summers is not empty time between important events. The journey is itself part of the work of being a whale. It connects feeding grounds to breeding waters, abundance to infancy, one current system to another, and one season's chemistry to the next. What looks, from far away, like absence from a place, is often participation in a much larger pattern. Of course, not every year is identical. Currents shift. Food patches vary. Climate patterns alter the timing and richness of productive waters. Some whales may delay, divert, or remain longer in one area when conditions favor it. Migration is ancient, but it is not rigid. That flexibility may be one reason such a life can persist in a sea that is always moving. And yet, there is also fidelity. Many blue whales return to broadly similar feeding regions year after year, and some are seen repeatedly in the same seasonal habitats. The route can bend without vanishing. This balance between steadiness and adjustment feels important. Life endures not by refusing change, but by remaining coherent within it. There is something almost difficult for a human mind in accepting the scale of patience involved here. A whale leaves rich water, swims for weeks, and enters another realm, not because it seeks novelty, but because the year itself has tilted. The journey is not a break from life. It is life. The basin turns. The whale answers. By the time warmer waters are reached, the great northern or southern feeding grounds may feel distant in more than miles. The body has shifted from one mode to another. The urgency of feeding has softened. The sea is clearer, often less productive, sometimes calmer. In those waters, the whale is not trying to gather all it can. It is inhabiting another season of itself. Then, later still, the direction will change again. Warmer months will begin to lose their purpose. The call of productive cold water, though not a call in any simple sense, will return through current, temperature, and timing, and the whale will turn once more toward higher latitudes, where tiny clustered lives can again sustain giant movement. So the route is not a line, it is a pulse. What makes this moving is that the pulse is older than any individual whale. One animal learns it, follows it, and someday is gone. Another follows after. The path persists, not as a road laid down in matter, but as a behavior renewed across generations. In that way, migration is both fragile and durable. It exists only while bodies remember. And perhaps that is why these journeys feel so deep in us when we contemplate them. They suggest that knowing a place does not always mean staying there. Sometimes knowing means leaving at the right time, crossing what seems trackless, and trusting a pattern large enough to hold both departure and return. The whale does not cling to one water. It belongs to many. By the end of such a passage, nothing has been conquered. No flag has been planted in the sea. There has only been the long carrying forward of a life tuned to distance, season, and the changing generosity of water. A back rises. A breath enters. The body goes on through blue that offers few landmarks and yet is full of guidance. It goes on quietly from one summer toward another. Distance, for a blue whale, is never separate from rhythm. A life spread across vast water is also a life measured in rises and descents, in the patient return to air, in the quiet interval between one breath and the next. Even travel begins to feel less like movement across a map than like a repeating pattern of body and sea, with the whale surfacing, filling itself and settling downward again in a tempo so steady that the ocean seems to learn it. At the surface, the first sign is often the exhale. A tall, pale column lifts into cooler air, hangs for a brief moment, and then frays away in the wind. What looks dramatic from far off is, for the whale itself, only the practical clearing of used air before the next inhale, a necessary exchange made visible for an instant above an otherwise hidden life. Then the breath comes in quickly, and the body prepares to sink once more. That quick inhale matters because a blue whale does not breathe the way we do. It does not trade air in and out constantly, with small, unnoticed breaths stitched through every moment. Instead, it gathers what it needs in concentrated visits to the surface, then carries that oxygen into depth, where the work of swimming, searching, and simply being continues out of sight. In other words, the boundary between sea and sky becomes less a place of residence than a doorway crossed with purpose. A person at sea might see several breaths in sequence. The whale appears. The blow rises. The broad back glides through. Each surfacing can last only moments before the body angles down again. And yet those moments are enough, because so much of whale life depends on efficiency rather than haste, on a design that wastes little and stores much. That is why giant size changes tempo. A small, warm body loses heat quickly, spends energy quickly, and must often react quickly. A blue whale lives under different rules, because great mass holds warmth and carries momentum, allowing the animal to move through cold water with a patient steadiness that would be impossible for something lighter and more fragile. Size here is not only magnitude, it becomes a kind of calm. When the whale begins a deeper descent, the motion can seem almost modest. There is no need for frantic effort. The back curves, the head lowers, and the long body slips beneath the surface in one deliberate line, as if the sea were receiving something already shaped for it. Sometimes the tail flukes rise clear, sometimes they do not. Either way, the whale is gone by degrees rather than by shock. Beneath the surface, the world changes quickly. Light thins. Sound opens outward. The body that seemed so large above water becomes part of a medium that can hold it gently, and the great weight that would press heavily on land is balanced here by buoyancy and flow. What makes this so striking is not merely that the whale can dive, but that water allows greatness itself to become graceful. As it goes down, the whale is not simply disappearing. It is managing resources with care. Heart rate slows during deeper dives, conserving oxygen and stretching each breath farther into time. Blood continues to serve the tissues that need it most, while muscles rely in part on their own stored oxygen, and the whole animal enters a state that is less like struggle than like measured economy. The descent is physical, but it is also arithmetic. Life is being quietly budgeted in the dark. That budget has to be generous. A blue whale is immense, yet it cannot breathe underwater. This old mammalian fact remains, even in the most ocean-made of bodies, and it means the whale must always live between two elements at once, fed by seawater in every other way, yet dependent on air from above. And yet that dependence does not look like weakness. It looks like rhythm strong enough to organize an entire life. There are shallower dives and deeper ones, easier intervals and more committed descents. Near the surface, the whale may travel and breathe in a regular series, not lingering long, not hurrying either. Farther down, more is asked of the body, and the time below stretches. The remarkable thing is how little of this seems forceful from the outside. A giant survives not by constant exertion, but by making each movement count. Swimming itself follows that same logic. The tail drives the whale forward with slow, powerful strokes, sending force through an animal built to turn effort into distance. Between those strokes, there can be gliding, and in that glide, one sees something essential about blue whale life. Momentum is precious, and the body is arranged to keep it. That is why a creature so large can cross so much ocean without looking busy. For smaller animals, motion can appear restless. Their world may require rapid turns, continuous finning, quick corrections, and near constant activity. The blue whale belongs to another scale, where a single stroke can carry the body onward for a long, quiet interval, and where the line between action and stillness begins to soften. It is not that the whale does less. It is that each act lasts longer. There is wisdom in that though not the humankind that names itself as wisdom. A body this large teaches through consequence. If every movement costs more in absolute terms, then waste becomes expensive and smoothness becomes valuable. And over long ages, evolution rewards the animals that travel with least excess through a resistant world. In other words, the whale's calm is not decorative. It is practical, ancient, and deeply earned. When a blue whale rises again, the sequence repeats with subtle variation. First, the surface breaks around the rostrum, then the blow, then the back, broad and slate blue in changing light, moving with that familiar, unhurried certainty. Seen over time, these surfacings form a pattern as distinctive as footsteps, though the medium is water and the traces vanish almost immediately after they are made. That vanishing matters. So much of whale life leaves almost nothing behind. A breath cloud drifts apart. Ripples settle. The place where the body went under becomes plain water again. Yet, from those brief signs, researchers and watchers can read pace, direction, perhaps the kind of dive that is beginning, and this too is part of the wonder. Such a hidden life can be known at all through these quiet, recurring marks at the boundary of air and sea. There are moments when the sea is calm enough that the whole event seems slowed for observation. The whale surfaces in a low sheen of morning light. The blow rises almost vertically before tipping away. Small waves run along the body's back and break into silver. Then the great shape leans downward and is taken by the dark water, leaving only a widening smoothness where it passed. The ocean closes, but not abruptly. What this means for the whale is difficult to overstate. Daily life is structured by intervals of access. Air is above. Food may be below. Travel continues through both. Rest, exertion, searching, feeding, and movement all have to fit within a body that cannot remain forever in one realm or the other. That arrangement might sound restrictive, yet it has produced one of the most successful large animals ever to live. Constraint sometimes becomes the frame within which elegance appears. And elegance is the right word, though a quiet one. There is elegance in the way a breath can be enough for so much body. There is elegance in the slowing heart, in the stored oxygen, in the reduced effort of a glide, and in the patience with which the whale returns upward before the need becomes urgent. Nothing about the sequence appears panicked. The animal lives by staying ahead of emergency. That calm reserve changes the meaning of time. A minute underwater can feel different for a creature that is not fidgeting through it, not spending itself in dozens of small reactions, but moving with a giant's economy through deep water where everything arrives more slowly. Yet slowness here is not dullness. It is precision stretched across broader intervals, a form of life in which urgency has been replaced by timing. What makes this rhythm so compelling is that it joins the mechanical and the mysterious. We can describe oxygen stores, stroke patterns, dive profiles, and the measurable slowing of a heart. We can place sensors, track surfacing intervals, and sketch the shape of a day. But the lived feeling of such a rhythm remains beyond us, because we are creatures of smaller lungs, smaller blood volumes, quicker pulses, and ground beneath our feet. The whale inhabits time differently because its body makes a different time possible. Perhaps that is why watching a blue whale often has a quieting effect on the human mind. The animal does not offer constant novelty. It offers recurrence. It surfaces, breathes, moves on, and disappears below in a pattern too large and too patient to flatter our usual appetite for rapid events. To stay with it, we have to accept another pace. And once we do, the reward is not excitement, but alignment. Even the sea around the whale seems to take on that pace. A swell lifts. The body rises with it. Air leaves and enters. The back passes like a low-moving hill. Then water folds over where the whale has been, and for a little while there is nothing to do but wait for the next appearance, trusting that somewhere beneath, the same large life is continuing in darkness without witness. There is something almost ceremonial in that repetition, though no ceremony is intended. The whale is only doing what it must do, as it has done through countless days and nights across cold feeding grounds and warmer traveling waters. Yet necessity, when repeated with such steadiness, begins to resemble devotion. Breath after breath, dive after dive, the animal keeps faith with the old exchange that made mammalian life in the sea possible. And the pace remains gentle. Even when effort increases, even when the body must descend farther or travel longer, the outer impression is one of quiet command rather than strain. That is the gift of scale-meeting efficiency. The whale does not need to seem hurried because it has been built over immense spans of time to let power arrive slowly and still be enough. So the day of a blue whale is not divided only by places. It is divided by breaths, by the return to the surface and the leaving of it, by the repeated turning of a body between air and depth, brightness and dimness, open sky and the hidden water beneath. A map could show where the whale has gone. Rhythm shows how it lives there. And after a while, that rhythm becomes difficult to separate from the idea of the whale itself. Not merely the largest animal, but an animal of measured intervals. Not merely powerful, but restrained. Not merely moving through the sea, but moving in a way that makes the sea seem even larger, because there is always so much quiet between one visible moment and the next. The body appears. The breath becomes cloud. The back descends. The water settles. Then it all begins again, as patient as before. And for all the grandeur of migration and dive, every blue whale begins in a quieter story. It begins in warm water with a body that has been carried for many months inside another body already built on a scale that strains description. Then birth arrives, not on land, not in shelter, but in open sea, where the first moment of life is already a lesson in movement, buoyancy, and breath. A blue whale calf enters a world without walls, where there is no ground to be set upon and no nest to be laid into, only the patient nearness of its mother beside it. Size is present from the first instant. So is dependence. The calf is large beyond ordinary ideas of infancy. At birth, it may be around 7 meters long and weigh several tons, a newborn already longer than many adult animals. Yet next to its mother, it seems reduced again, a soft beginning beside a vast familiar shape, dark and immense and steady in the water. That is what scale does here. It keeps rearranging what counts as small. Birth itself is thought to happen tail first, as it does in many whales. That order matters in water because it may help keep the calf from inhaling before the body is fully free. The first problem of life is not finding food or learning direction, but reaching air. And so the earliest act is upward. The mother does not hand the calf into the world and leave it to figure this out alone. She stays close, guiding with her own movement, keeping pace beside the newborn as it rises. In some observations, Another whale may remain nearby as well, sometimes called an escort, though the exact role is not always clear. What matters most is proximity. In the ocean, closeness is a kind of shelter. At the surface, the calf takes its first breath. It is not a cry in air as with many land mammals, but an opening into rhythm, a sudden beginning of lungs working in a world where breath must be chosen and renewed. Water supports the body, but it does not forgive forgetting. That is why so much of early life is practice. A newborn blue whale does not enter the sea ready in the complete sense. It enters with instincts, with powerful help from the body, and with a mother whose presence turns danger into something more navigable. The calf must learn how often to surface, how to coordinate its swimming, how to stay near, how to rest without drifting too far, and how to move through a medium that is holding and demanding at once. The ocean is not a cradle by nature. It becomes one through relationship. For the first stretch of life, the calf remains very near its mother. It swims beside her, slightly behind, sometimes above the line of her flank, sheltered in the slipstream of her motion. That position may make travel easier by reducing drag, allowing the smaller body to borrow some efficiency from the larger one. The mother is not only a source of milk, she is also, in a quiet physical sense, part of the calf's first map of how to move. That borrowed ease matters because growth begins immediately, and it is swift. Blue whale milk is dense with fat, rich enough to build blubber quickly in a body that must soon maintain its own warmth in the sea. A calf may gain extraordinary amounts of mass each day during nursing. What looks like tenderness from a distance is also a transfer of energy on a giant scale, a daily conversion of the mother's stored abundance into the calf's future survival. Nursing in a whale is not quite like nursing on land. There is no soft nest, no still body lying down. Mother and calf are suspended in water, and the calf must position itself beneath or beside the mother's body to feed, often while both continue moving. The mother releases milk, and the calf takes it in quickly. Even nourishment here has been shaped by buoyancy and motion. Love, if we may use a careful version of that word, has to work hydrodynamically. And yet, the scene is still intimate. A giant body slows. A smaller body aligns itself with practiced urgency. Between them passes warmth, fat, chemistry, continuation, and time. What makes this so moving is not only that a mother feeds her young, but that even in one of the largest animals ever to live, life still begins with nearness and repeated care. Greatness does not remove the need to be held close. It may deepen it. The calf's body changes quickly under that care. Its skin, still smooth and new to the open sea, stretches over a frame that is lengthening fast. Blubber thickens, muscles strengthen. Swimming becomes more coordinated, less wavering, more sure. In other words, the calf is not simply getting bigger, it is becoming seaworthy. That word matters more than it first appears to. On land, early growth often means learning how to stand, balance, and move under gravity. In the sea, it means learning how to inhabit depth and lift, how to rise without panic, how to descend without confusion, how to trust a body that is always suspended and never set down. The first ocean a calf knows is not the whole Pacific or Atlantic. It is the moving space beside its mother. She sets the pace. Blue whales are not known for the tightly clustered nursery groups seen in some other species, and the bond between mother and calf stands at the center of this early world. She must keep breathing, traveling and managing her own energy, all while staying with a calf that cannot match her strength or experience. That makes motherhood here a discipline of adjustment. She is immense, but she must move with the limits of someone newly arrived. If the calf tires, the mother cannot simply leave it behind and return later. The sea is too open for that, and the calf's needs are too immediate. So early life is shaped by accommodation, by repeated returns to the surface, by a pattern of movement organized around dependence. In that sense, a calf changes not only the future of a whale, but the present tense of her day. Care has a tempo. There is danger in these first months, though blue whales are not surrounded by constant threat in the way smaller animals often are. A calf is more vulnerable than an adult to cold, exhaustion, separation, and the rare but real risk of predation by orcas in some regions. That vulnerability gives new meaning to the mother's size. The same mass that makes a blue whale seem almost abstract in scale becomes, beside a calf, something else entirely. It becomes protection with a heartbeat. Picture them from a distance in calm water. The mother surfaces first, long and measured, her blow rising and fading. Then the calf appears nearby, smaller, quicker, still working out the timing of its own body. They travel on together, one already ancient in ability, the other new enough that every successful breath is still part of learning. The scene is quiet, but it is full of instruction. The calf watches, though not in the way a human child watches a face. It keeps track through position, sound, pressure, and the repeated pattern of what the mother does. When she rises, the calf rises. When she turns, the calf follows. When she maintains a certain pace through open water, the calf's muscles and lungs begin to organize themselves around that pattern. Teaching here may look less like demonstration and more like consistency. The lesson is the mother herself. This is one of the deep stories of mammal life, carried into the sea without losing its shape. The young do not merely hatch into the world and continue alone. They arrive unfinished in a meaningful way, and relationship completes what birth began. Yet in whales, that old pattern has been translated into a vast, fluid environment, where touch is brief, orientation is three-dimensional, and separation can happen silently. Maternal care had to become oceanic. It did. The calf's early swims are also the beginning of migration in miniature. Long before it understands distance, it is being carried through a life that includes it. Warm breeding waters will not remain the whole world. The pair may eventually travel toward richer feeding grounds, and the calf's body must be ready for colder, more demanding conditions. That is why milk is more than food. It is stored weather, stored miles, stored future endurance. As weeks pass, the calf grows stronger in ways that are visible even from the surface. Its surfacings become more controlled. Its line through the water steadies. It lingers less awkwardly between movements and begins to inhabit motion with more confidence. This is how a giant is made at the beginning, not through sudden power, but through repeated small successes inside a very large element. There is tenderness in that, though it is a tenderness without softness in the sentimental sense. The sea remains vast. The mother must remain vigilant in the broad way marine life requires, attentive not through nervous agitation, but through constancy. The calf must keep learning, because there is no pause button in open water. Rest, feeding, travel, and breathing all continue together. Early life is not protected from reality. It is introduced to reality gently. And yet, gentleness can be enough. A calf beside its mother is not alone with the whole ocean at once. Its world is narrowed to what can be followed, heard, and felt at close range. The body of the mother becomes a familiar coastline in a place with no shore. That may be one of the quiet meanings of parental care in the sea. It gives shape to immensity. Eventually, nursing will end. The calf will shift toward feeding for itself, toward independence, toward a life carried by its own decisions and senses across distances difficult to imagine from the shore. But the first months leave their mark. The giant adult that later glides through migratory routes and cold feeding grounds once lived in a much smaller circle of knowing. A flank nearby, a rise to air, a pulse of milk, a rhythm borrowed before it became its own. Even at this earliest stage, blue whales remind us that size is not the opposite of vulnerability. The largest animal ever known begins with need, with closeness, with learning, and with trust placed in another body moving through the same dark water. That is a quiet correction to many human ideas about greatness. Vastness here does not begin in dominance. It begins in dependence well met. And perhaps that is why scenes of mother and calf stay with people who see them. Not because they are dramatic, though they can be moving, but because they return the unimaginable to something familiar without making it ordinary. A blue whale remains difficult to comprehend, but a mother staying near her young is not. The ancient and the recognizable meet there, floating together at the surface of a patient sea. As the calf lengthens and the months pass, the pair continue through waters that are still, to the calf, almost the whole universe. Breath follows breath. Feeding follows hunger. Strength gathers quietly in the tissues. Nothing announces the transformation, yet it is already underway. One day, the calf will no longer need the mother's slipstream to travel well, or her milk to build its stores, or her constant nearness to organize the day. For now, it stays close. And in that closeness, the earliest ocean becomes livable. The water carries voices farther than light. For a young blue whale, this becomes part of the world very early. Sight matters, of course, at the surface and in clear water. But the sea is too vast, too dim, and too often hidden by distance for vision to do all the work. Sound moves differently here, sliding through water with an ease that air does not allow, turning the ocean into a place where one animal can be touched by another without either body coming near. It is a strange intimacy. Blue whales are among the deepest voices in the animal world. Their calls are low, sometimes so low that parts of them sit at the edge of what human hearing can register, and they can last for many seconds, unfolding more like a slow event than a brief sound. A note like that does not simply appear and vanish. It travels. That is why the ocean can become an acoustic landscape. A whale does not only move through water, temperature, and depth. It also moves through a field of vibrations, some near, some distant, some fresh, some arriving from far away after long passage through the sea. In other words, a blue whale may inhabit a world that is partly built out of echoes, pulses, and low tones drifting through darkness. We tend to trust sight more than sound. Human life is arranged that way. We look across rooms, roads, horizons, and faces, and we often treat seeing as the clearest form of knowing, but underwater that hierarchy begins to soften because visibility is so easily reduced by depth, weather, plankton, dusk, or distance, while sound keeps going with patient determination. The sea rearranges the senses. What makes this so moving is not only the physics, it is the feeling implied by it. A blue whale may call and be heard by another whale far beyond anything either could see. Water, pressure, and low frequency make that possible, especially in conditions where sound channels through the ocean in ways that preserve it over great distances. A voice can leave one dark body and continue through miles of hidden water, crossing a space that, to our eyes, would feel almost empty. It is not empty. Scientists studying blue whale calls have found patterns in them. Some are long, repeated sequences. Some differ by region, season, or population, forming something a little like shared traditions in sound. Yet even when we describe these calls carefully, we remain at the edge of their meaning, because identifying a pattern is not the same as knowing what it feels like to produce it or receive it in a body built for the sea. We can measure structure. We cannot fully enter experience. And yet, structure matters. Repeated calls suggest purpose, and purpose suggests relation. A low call may help whales maintain contact across distance. It may announce presence, support navigation, or play a role in mating, especially when certain calls become more common in breeding contexts. Sound can serve many functions at once, because life rarely divides itself into neat categories, and a single vocalization may be part location, part identity, part timing, part social thread. Meaning may travel in layers. That possibility asks something gentle of us. It asks us to stop imagining communication only as speech that resembles our own. We often assume that language becomes meaningful only when it grows precise, rapid, and richly divided into many distinct symbols. But a blue whale offers another model, one in which slowness, depth, repetition, and reach may matter more than variety. A few low notes may hold an entire social world. There is something ancient in that, not primitive, ancient. Low-frequency sound has a bodily quality. Humans do not only hear it. We often feel it in the chest, in the floor, in the slight trembling of objects nearby. For a whale surrounded on all sides by water, the experience may be even more complete, because vibration is not arriving only at two ears placed on the sides of a head. It is passing through an entire medium that touches the whole body. Sound becomes almost environmental. That changes the idea of distance. A distant call is still distant, but it is not absent. When we stand on land at night and hear a train far away or thunder beyond hills, part of the feeling comes from knowing that the world continues outside our small circle of sight. Whale sound deepens that feeling almost beyond measure. Somewhere in dark water, another immense animal may be moving, breathing, and calling, and that call may arrive long before any body could ever be seen. Presence comes first as vibration. This is one reason the ocean can seem both lonely and connected at the same time. A blue whale may travel through enormous spaces where no companion is visible nearby. The surface may show only water and sky. The depths may show only dim blue fading toward black. And yet the acoustic world may still be populated, threaded with signs of others, carrying reminders that the sea is not empty merely because it is hidden. Solitude here may have company inside it. The calls themselves are often simple in shape. A long note, a pulse, a descending tone, a phrase repeated. To a human ear that can sound almost minimal, as though little is being said, but minimal does not mean empty. A lighthouse beam is simple too. So is a heartbeat, so is the tide returning to shore. Repetition can be a form of stability. What makes this especially beautiful in blue whales is scale meeting restraint. They are large enough to overturn our ordinary sense of animal size, yet their voices do not rush to match that scale with complexity or display. Instead, the sound can be spare and low, as though a body of enormous mass has no need to prove itself. It simply sends one steady note into the water and lets the sea do the carrying. That is enough. There are regions of the ocean where sound can travel with unusual efficiency because of the relationship between temperature, pressure, and depth. In these layers, often called sound channels, low-frequency calls may remain trapped and guided rather than scattering upward or downward too quickly. The ocean, in a quiet sense, becomes an instrument. Its own structure helps the note continue. Yet this is not magic. It is matter behaving according to its nature. And that may be the wonder pivot here. A whale does not need a special exception from the rules of the universe in order to seem extraordinary. It becomes extraordinary through alignment with those rules, through a body that makes low sound, in a medium that favors low sound, across a planet covered in water deep enough to keep carrying it. The result feels almost mythic, but it is also plain physics. Life keeps finding grandeur inside ordinary laws. When we hear that a blue whale's call may travel vast distances under the right conditions, it can sound like a fact about range. It is also a fact about relationship. Communication over distance changes what a world is. It means the edge of experience is not the edge of sight. It means another living being can matter to you from far beyond the visible horizon. It means separation and connection are not opposites after all. Human beings know a little about this feeling. A voice over a telephone line, music through a wall, a person in another room, humming. But underwater, the principle becomes larger and quieter, stretched over distances that seem almost impossible, until one whale's low phrase drifts through miles of dark and arrives in another body as information or reassurance or invitation or simply the fact of someone else's existence. Sometimes that is enough. We do not know everything these calls mean. That uncertainty should remain gentle. It is tempting to translate immediately, to decide that one pattern means this and another means that. Science can identify likely functions and observe useful correlations, and that work is careful and important. But there is still a difference between mapping use and knowing inner significance. Even among humans, words do not always reveal the whole of feeling. How much less, then, can we assume about a life shaped by water, migration, pressure, and low sound? So the blue whale stands before us, or rather beneath us, as a reminder that communication may be broader than language as we usually frame it. It may include timing, spacing, repetition, resonance, and the emotional force of simply being detectable in a large world. To call may be to say many things. I am here. I am moving. I belong to this pattern. This water is not silent while I am in it. And perhaps that last thought matters most. Not because it solves anything, but because it changes the mood of the sea. A silent ocean can feel empty to the human imagination. A sounding ocean feels inhabited. Once you know that great whales may be exchanging low calls beneath the visible surface, the water becomes less like a blank expanse and more like a hidden interior, full of passing signals, patient announcements, and slow conversations conducted beyond our natural range. The sea grows inward. There is also something humbling in the frequencies themselves. Some blue whale sounds are too low for us to hear well without help. Our species, so confident in its measurements and categories, meets an animal whose ordinary voice partly slips below the comfortable limits of human perception. That is not a failure of the whale. It is a reminder that the world is always larger than the senses that first introduced it to us. In other words, there are songs on earth that were never shaped for human ears. They do not become meaningful only when we hear them. They were already meaningful in the dark water before we ever lowered a hydrophone into the sea. A blue whale calling in mid-ocean is not performing for an audience. It is participating in a world that exists fully without us. That can feel strangely peaceful. There is relief in it. Not everything beautiful is addressed to human attention. Some things continue in their own patient circles, independent, steady, and complete. A whale's low call moving through cold water belongs to that category. It does not ask to be admired, it only travels. And because it travels, the ocean itself begins to seem less empty and more companioned. A calf growing older may learn this not as an idea, but as atmosphere. The world is not only what can be seen beside the mother's body, it is also what arrives through the water from elsewhere. The sea extends beyond sight, but not beyond relation. Imagine drifting in dim blue, where the horizon has disappeared, and then feeling, before understanding, that somewhere far off, another life has entered the water with sound. That is the kind of world a blue whale lives in, broad, hidden, and in some quiet way conversational. Not crowded, not noisy, just connected by intervals, by long notes, by the patient reach of vibration through a medium made to carry it. A world where distance does not always mean disconnection. We often think intimacy requires nearness, face to face, hand to hand, breath to breath. Yet the whale suggests another form, intimacy at range, presence without visibility. A bond maintained across water too large to see through, where recognition may come not by outline or color, but by timing, frequency, and return. It asks us to widen the shape of closeness. And once that idea settles in, the ocean changes again. It becomes a place where the unseen is not necessarily lost, where absence may only be hidden presence, and where a single low call can make the dark feel inhabited rather than vacant. The blue whale does not conquer this vastness. It lives inside it by sounding gently into it, and by hearing what comes back, or what simply continues past. That feels like a quiet kind of wisdom. Not the wisdom of solving the sea, but of belonging within what cannot be fully seen. So the voice goes on through water, low, slow, distant. Somewhere, another whale may hear it. Somewhere else, perhaps much farther away than sight could ever manage, the sea is already carrying the next note. And the dark between them is not empty at all. The water is colder here. And once sound becomes part of the story, it is hard not to wonder about the one who hears it. Not just the ear, or the nerve, or the passing vibration, but the life gathered around that sensation, the inner weather of a being moving through distances so large that hearing may sometimes matter more than seeing. The question grows very quiet. It stays. Blue whales are mammals, and with that comes a nervous system tuned for feeling, responding, and remembering. Their brains are large, though size alone does not tell us what a mind is like. And in animals this different from us, it may tell us less than we would like. What makes this so difficult is also what makes it beautiful. We are meeting awareness in a form that does not fit our habits. We often picture intelligence as something quick. We imagine hands, faces, tools, decisions made in moments, a restless brightness behind the eyes. Yet a blue whale asks whether a mind might also be vast, patient and slow without being dim, whether awareness can be measured not only by speed or problem solving, but by steadiness, sensitivity, and the long keeping of a world inside the body. It changes the scale of thought. A whale does not move through empty water. It moves through information. Pressure shifts against the skin. Temperature changes by degrees so small they may still matter. Sound arrives from far beyond sight, carrying the shape of coastlines, weather, seafloor, ice, ships, and other whales, until the ocean becomes less a blank expanse than a textured field of signals, layered and moving, familiar in some places and strange in others. The sea has contours even in darkness. That matters because perception is not only about taking in the world. It is also about living inside a world that has structure. For a blue whale, the ocean may be less like a featureless plain and more like a changing atmosphere of clues, one that can be read through the whole body over time until movement itself becomes a way of knowing. To travel is also to sense. Vision still has its place, of course. Light at the surface, shadow below, the nearness of another body, the brightness and dimming of day. Yet in such a wide environment, where visibility can shrink and distance can become almost abstract, sight cannot be the only guide, and perhaps not even the main one, which leaves us with a humbling idea that a rich life can be built on senses we do not trust as deeply as our own eyes. We are not the measure here. And when we wonder what the whale knows, memory enters quietly. Migration already suggests some durable inner map, some persistence of route, season, and return. A calf staying near its mother likely learns more than motion alone. It may be gathering patterns of timing, water, sound, and place, storing them not as names the way we would, but as bodily knowledge, as remembered conditions that say here, now, this way, not in words, but in recognitions that settle deep and last. Memory does not need language to endure. That is true for many animals. Yet in a blue whale, the scale changes the feeling of it. To remember across an ocean is different from remembering a den, a tree, or a bend in a river. The distances are so large and the landmarks so hidden that memory begins to seem less like a single act and more like a patient arrangement between body and planet, a long conversation with currents, seasons, and recurring abundance. The Earth itself becomes part of recall. We do not know exactly what a blue whale remembers. That uncertainty should remain gentle. But it is hard not to think that a creature who returns to broad feeding areas, who recognizes calls, who stays in relation to calf or companion, carries some durable continuity within, some thread that holds one season to the next and one stretch of sea to another. A life this large is not lived only in the present moment. Recognition may matter too. When two blue whales come near one another, something passes between them beyond mere position in space. There is orientation, adjustment, response. There may be familiarity, or at least difference noticed as difference. One individual not quite the same as another in sound, size, timing, or movement. And if that is so, then the ocean is not populated by interchangeable shapes, but by distinct presences encountered in a medium where meeting is rare enough to matter. A neighbor is not just a body, it is a someone. This is where language becomes clumsy. We want clear words: friend, stranger, attachment, society. But those are human terms built for human arrangements, and they can become too rigid when placed over another life. Blue whales do not need to resemble us in order to have social sensitivity, and whatever form that sensitivity takes may be quieter, looser, and more spacious than our categories allow. Relationship can exist without crowding. A whale and her calf make that easier to feel. There, closeness is obvious. But even beyond motherhood, there may be a social world measured less by constant contact than by meaningful encounter. Some minds may not need a busy stream of interaction to remain responsive to others. Some awareness may be perfectly suited to solitude, punctuated by recognition, to long intervals of traveling alone, and brief moments when another presence alters the water, the path, the choices ahead. Not every social life is dense. That idea can widen our own. We often treat isolation and connection as opposites. A blue whale suggests something softer, where distance does not erase relation, and where an animal can spend long periods physically apart from others while remaining part of a larger pattern of calls, crossings, breeding grounds, feeding grounds, and remembered routes shared across time. Solitude here may not be loneliness. It may simply be the native scale of a vast sea. Then there is feeling, which is harder still to approach. Blue whales are warm-blooded mammals. They nurse their young. They respond to one another. Their bodies carry the same broad biological inheritance that, in us and in many other mammals, makes room for distress, calm, arousal, attachment, and the subtle shades in between. Yet even with this kinship, we cannot simply pour human emotion into whale form and call it understanding. Nearness must remain careful. Still, it would be strange to imagine such an animal as merely mechanical. A mother keeping close to her calf, a whale altering course around another, a body responding to injury or disturbance, a life carried by rhythms of appetite, rest, caution, and orientation. All of this points towards subjectivity of some kind, some inwardness, however unlike ours, in which the world is not just processed, but undergone. Things happen to a whale. They are felt. That may be the deepest threshold. Once an animal is not only alive, but has an interior, however distant from our own, ethics begins in wonder. Not in guilt and not in sentiment, but in the simple and difficult recognition that beneath the smooth blue back and the vast mechanics of breath and muscle, there is experience taking place. The ocean does not contain only bodies, it contains points of view. And yet a blue whale's point of view may be distributed through motion itself. For us, stillness often helps thought. We sit and then we reflect. But a whale's life unfolds in near constant travel, ascent, descent, turning, listening, adjusting. So perhaps awareness there is less like standing apart from the world, and more like being carried through it without break, knowing by moving, remembering by returning, feeling by passing through layered water that is never quite the same twice. Mind may be inseparable from glide. That possibility matters because humans often imagine consciousness as detached. We picture an observer somewhere inside, watching events unfold. A whale invites another picture, one in which self and environment are less sharply divided, where the body is not a vehicle for perception, but the place where perception happens, and the sea is not outside experience so much as the medium that composes it. The world is inside the moment of being known. What would time feel like in such a life? That question has no answer, but it is worth resting near. Our days are broken by clocks, walls, speech, tasks, and all the small cuts that divide 1 hour from another. A blue whale may inhabit duration more continuously, with time marked by light, depth, hunger, season, distance, and recurrence, until a day feels less chopped into pieces and more like one long current with subtle turns. A different tempo may support a different kind of mind. Perhaps that is why blue whales seem, even from afar, to carry a kind of composure. Not because they are simple, and not because they are beyond feeling, but because their scale changes the speed at which life can be lived. Urgency may still exist, so may need. But much of their existence appears shaped by long arcs rather than quick reactions. The mind inside such a body may learn patience because the body itself requires it. There is also the question of self. Do blue whales know themselves as individuals in any way we would recognize? Do they possess something like self-awareness, not in the narrow mirror test sense that humans often prefer, but in the broader sense of being a center of action, memory, and expectation, a life with continuity, a body distinguished from other bodies, a present linked to a past? It seems difficult to imagine otherwise, though the form of that self may be quiet and unlike our own narratives. Humans tell ourselves stories all day. We arrange memory into plot. We keep revising who we think we are. A whale may not live by story in that way at all. Itself may be less verbal, less divided, less haunted by explanation, perhaps more like a steady coherence of sensation and return. A familiar body moving through a familiar vastness, carrying its own continuity without ever needing to name it. There is something restful in that possibility, and perhaps that is where the wondering should settle. Not on whether a blue whale thinks exactly as we do or feels exactly as we do, but on the larger and quieter truth that a mind does not need to resemble our own to be real. Beneath the surface of the sea, in cold distances crossed by pressure and sound, there moves a being for whom the ocean is not scenery. It is lived from within. That is enough for thought to soften around. A great body rises. A breath enters. The dark water changes against the skin. Somewhere far off, another call passes through the deep and is heard by someone we cannot fully imagine, though we know that hearing matters to them and that the world they carry is continuous and felt and their own. The question remains open. It can remain open. And in that open space, the whale keeps going, not toward an answer, but through the moving sea, patient and blue, held within a world large enough for mystery to stay gentle. A single whale feels immense, and yet it is also one moment in a much older unfolding. Long before there were blue whales, there were small mammals on land. They breathed air, moved on 4 limbs, and lived in a world of soil, leaf, riverbank, and weather. Over immense stretches of time, some of their descendants began to spend more of life in water, and the body, patient as ever, began to change. It changed. The nostrils drifted upward. The forelimbs became flippers. The spine learned a new kind of wave, and the tail took on the work that hind legs once did, until the animal no longer moved through the world by stepping, but by lifting and pressing against water itself. What makes this story so quiet and so strange is that it was not a leap, but a long negotiation between one home and another. For a while, these ancestors belonged partly to both worlds. They still carried traces of land in their bones, even as their days became more aquatic, and in fossils you can sometimes feel that hesitation as if evolution itself were pausing at the shoreline to consider another possibility. Yet life rarely pauses for long. It keeps testing forms. And so the descendants of those early whale ancestors moved farther from shore. Their bodies lengthened, their back legs diminished, and then disappeared from use. Though faint remnants remained buried deep within the body, small internal bones that still whisper of a four-legged past. In other words, the blue whale carries a memory of land without ever needing to return there. That is part of what makes whales feel both familiar and distant. They are mammals, as we are. They nurse their young, breathe air, carry warm blood, and rise to the surface with lungs instead of gills. And yet they did not remain where mammals began, but took the old mammalian design into a different element entirely. The result is not a compromise. It is a second mastery. There is something quietly moving in that return to the sea. Not because it follows a plan, but because it reminds us that evolution does not march in one direction towards some final shape. It wanders. It revisits. A lineage can leave the water, change for millions of years, and then find that the sea still holds another answer. Blue whales belong to a much later chapter in that story. They are not ancient in the way a horseshoe crab or nautilus lineage feels ancient, almost unchanged at a glance. Blue whales are ancient differently. They are the outcome of many transformations, the newest form of a very old experiment in how a mammal might live at the scale of an ocean basin. That difference matters. The giants we know today emerged within a world that offered unusual conditions. Cold waters can hold rich blooms of life. Ocean currents can gather food into immense seasonal concentrations. And when a body can move efficiently between those temporary feasts, large size begins to offer advantages that smaller animals cannot quite claim in the same way. Size becomes storage. Size becomes endurance. Yet giant size did not appear all at once. It had to be assembled generation by generation as selection favored bodies that could travel farther, retain heat more steadily, and make use of dense swarms of small prey when the season was right. A blue whale is not merely large. It is what happens when abundance, distance, and cold water shape a body together over deep time. That is why a blue whale can feel less like an exception than like a conclusion. Not a final conclusion, because evolution does not settle in that way, but a kind of temporary arrival, a place where many long pressures met and produced something vast, streamlined, and strangely gentle. For now, this is one of the answers life has made. And yet, even the largest animal known has existed only within a changing ocean. Sea levels shifted. Ice ages came and went. Currents altered their courses. Coastlines moved. Entire marine communities rose, settled, and changed again, while whale lineages continued through those rearrangements, not untouched, but enduring by changing along with the world around them. Continuity here does not mean stillness. Perhaps that is one of the quiet lessons hidden in deep time. Survival is not always about force. Sometimes it is about remaining flexible enough over thousands and millions of years to let the body be revised by conditions it did not choose. The whale becomes a reminder that persistence can be fluid. When humans entered this story, we entered very late. For almost all of whale history, no human eye saw a blue whale, no human language named it, and no map marked its routes. They moved through vast waters beyond our knowing, surfacing, feeding, crossing distances, and sinking again beneath weather and horizon. Much of their life was lived entirely outside our memory. Then, ships changed that distance. For most of human time, blue whales were too large, too fast in the open sea, and too difficult to pursue with older methods. Their scale protected them in a way. But industrial whaling altered the balance. Steam power, explosive harpoons, and processing ships made it possible for human technology to reach animals that had long remained beyond practical capture. A brief intersection became a devastating one. The word brief matters here. It lasted terribly long in human feeling, and it cost blue whales dearly. But set beside the age of the lineage, industrial whaling was a sharp and recent interval, a sudden pressure imposed on an ancient body by a very new kind of predator. The ocean changed because our reach changed. In the early 20th century, blue whales were hunted across several oceans in great numbers. Their bodies, so difficult to imagine alive, were reduced to tonnage, yield, oil, and commodity. And that reduction may be one of the saddest human habits. The ability to look at a living enormity and see only what can be extracted from it. Scale did not save them. It exposed them. And yet, even this part of the story is not the whole story. Protection came. International rules changed. Hunting declined, and then, in most places, stopped. Populations that had been driven down began, slowly and unevenly, to recover in some regions. Not as a return to what once was, perhaps, but as evidence that life can begin again when pressure is lifted. Slowly. Slowly matters too. Blue whales do not recover at the pace of small, fast-breeding animals. A creature so large, so long-lived, and so invested in each calf will always live by a slower arithmetic. Loss can happen quickly. Return takes longer. In other words, the rhythm of damage and the rhythm of healing are often not the same rhythm at all. There is something humbling in that mismatch. Humans can alter the fate of a species within decades. The species may need far longer simply to begin resembling itself again. We are used to scales of time that fit inside a single life, but whales ask us to think in wider spans, where patience is not a virtue, but a condition of reality. Still, some blue whales are there. They are crossing water, feeding, calling, calving, and continuing a lineage that once seemed, to humans, almost too reduced to imagine in the future. That continuation does not erase what happened. It sits beside it. A damaged history and a living present can occupy the same sea. What makes this hopeful is not the fantasy of a perfect repair. Nature does not return to some untouched version of itself simply because we wish it to. The hope is quieter than that. It is the fact that absence did not become total silence, and that the great body still moves through the water where it has moved for ages. It still moves. And when a blue whale surfaces now, there is a sense in which two times meet. One is evolutionary time, deep and slow, carrying the memory of shoreline ancestors and countless generations shaped by cold oceans and rich feeding grounds. The other is human time, abrupt and restless, capable of injury, but also sometimes capable of restraint. The meeting is unresolved. That unresolved feeling may be honest. We are not outside the story, observing from a safe distance. We are part of the changed ocean now, and the whale lives within waters marked by our noise, our travel, our histories, our decisions, even when we are nowhere in sight. Yet the whale remains more than our effect on it. That is important to remember. A blue whale is not a symbol built for human thought. It is not merely a lesson in conservation, or guilt, or awe. It is an animal with its own continuity, older than our machines, older than our records, older than our categories for what should be possible in a mammal body. It exceeds the uses of our mind. Perhaps that is why the idea of resilience feels different here. Resilience is often spoken of as if it were heroic, dramatic, full of effort and triumph. But in whales, it can seem quieter. It looks like returning again to a feeding ground. It sounds like a call carrying across distance. It lives in the simple fact of another generation entering the sea. And beneath that quiet resilience is the older truth that no species is fixed forever. The blue whale itself is change made flesh. Land mammal turned ocean giant. Air breather turned master of deep travel. Warm-bodied descendant of small terrestrial ancestors now gliding through one of the largest habitats on Earth. Change did not diminish it. Change became it. That thought can widen the mind a little. We often imagine identity as something pure and stable, best preserved by resisting alteration. But life does not seem to work that way. Life keeps itself by transforming, and sometimes the most continuous thing about a lineage is not its shape, but its capacity to become other forms while remaining, somehow, itself. So the blue whale carries several times at once. The old time of mammals, the long marine time of whale evolution, the colder, richer climatic rhythms that favored giant baleen feeders, the recent wound of industrial hunting, the patient time of partial return. All of that is present, quietly, in one surfacing body. And still, the whale does not carry history the way we do. It does not stand apart from time and narrate what has happened. It moves inside conditions. It follows season, sound, prey, current, companionship, and the old bodily knowledge shaped by ancestors it will never know. Perhaps that is another form of wisdom, one without commentary. If there is comfort in this, it may be very simple. The sea has changed before. The bodies within it have changed before. Some changes have opened possibilities so strange that they produced an animal larger than any dinosaur we know. Some changes have brought harm. Some have allowed recovery. The story remains open. And in that openness, the blue whale continues. Not untouched, not explained completely, not restored to some perfect past, but present, breathing, traveling, feeding in waters that are older than our names for them, rising through dark and light in a body shaped by millions of years, then slipping under again with hardly a sound. That feels worth sitting with for a while. An ancient body, a changed ocean. Still, it goes on. And far from any ship, beyond any coastline, beneath a sky no whale needs to look at for meaning, that vast life keeps its patient course through water that has held many endings and many continuations before settling once more into the long, quiet work of being alive. And after anatomy, migration, hunger, sound, and time, something quieter remains. A blue whale is not only large, it is large in a way that changes the feeling of largeness itself. Mountains are large by staying still. Storms are large by arriving with force. A blue whale moves another way, carrying vastness through the water with a gentleness that seems, at first, almost impossible. It does not rush to prove its scale. That is part of why the mind returns to it. We are used to size announcing itself. We expect the enormous to be loud, aggressive, hard-edged, and impossible to ignore, because in human life, great force often arrives wearing those shapes. Yet the blue whale unsettles that expectation by being immense and, at the same time, restrained, as if size itself can become quiet when held by water. That is a strange thought. What makes this animal linger in imagination is not only that it is the largest known creature to have lived. It is that such greatness is joined to softness of motion, to long patience, to feeding that depends on tiny lives gathered in abundance, and to a presence more often sensed as distance than as threat. The whale becomes more than a body. It becomes a different answer to the question of what power can look like. Not domination, presence. There is something deeply calming in that distinction. A blue whale does not seem to occupy the ocean the way an empire occupies land, drawing lines and enforcing them, but more like weather passing through a familiar region, enormous and real, yet not organized around conquest. It is large without needing to diminish anything around it, and yet it is not invulnerable. This is where the animal grows even more difficult to think about in ordinary ways. We often treat size as protection, as if enough mass could turn life into certainty. But the blue whale reminds us that scale and fragility can live in the same body, and perhaps always do. To be vast is not to be beyond harm. In other words, greatness does not cancel tenderness. That idea reaches beyond whales. It touches something older in us, some quiet recognition that the world is full of beings whose strength is real but not absolute, whose continuance depends on rhythms, temperatures, migrations, seasons, and chances they do not control. The blue whale seems monumental, yet it still belongs to currents, to food webs, to timing, to a planet that keeps moving beneath every life. Even the largest life is still held. There may be part of our fascination there. Human beings have long looked for creatures that seem to stand outside their ordinary limits of existence, as if somewhere on Earth there might be a life large enough, old enough, or distant enough to steady our own sense of smallness. Yet when we find such a creature, it rarely gives us escape from limitation. Instead, it gives us a larger frame for it. The whale is not free from dependence. It is shaped by it. That may be one reason it feels so moving. If an animal of such impossible scale must still eat, travel, breathe, bear young, rest, and listen through darkness, then perhaps dependence is not a failure of life at all, but one of its oldest conditions. The blue whale does not transcend the living world. It belongs to it completely. So much size, still belonging. There is also a beautiful contradiction in the way abundance gathers around this animal. Its body speaks of excess, of more than enough, of a form so enlarged that it almost seems mythic. And yet that body is built from innumerable small events. Tiny prey, repeated breaths, long roots, accumulated seasons, the steady labor of growth over time. Enormity, in this case, is not one grand leap. It is a patient gathering. That is why it feels ancient even in the present. Not ancient only because its lineage reaches back through deep history, though it does, but because its way of becoming seems to follow an old law of the sea, that the vast may arise from what is minute, that whole worlds are supported by drifting concentrations of small lives, and that greatness in nature is often assembled from things nearly too small to notice. The blue whale makes that law visible, a giant fed by swarms. There is humility in that image, not humiliation. Something quieter. To live at the largest scale and still depend on the smallest clustered forms is to reveal how little the ladder of importance means beneath the surface. Big does not replace small. Big is built upon small, and small becomes large by joining, gathering, repeating, and returning. The whale carries that truth in its body. And then there is the question of gentleness, which is not simple. It would be easy to romanticize an animal this serene in motion, to make it into a symbol of pure peace. But real gentleness is more interesting than innocence. Gentleness here is not weakness. It is a mode of being shaped by a life in which force is used sparingly, because it need not be wasted. What looks soft may be efficiency. Water changes the meaning of mass. In water, support comes from the medium itself, and movement can be smooth, where on land it would be crushing. So the whale becomes an example of how environment shapes not only bodies, but the very character we imagine in them. A giant on land might seem heavy and loud. A giant beneath the sea can glide. And so our feelings follow physics. Perhaps that is another reason blue whales feel almost dreamlike to us. The ocean allows forms that would seem impossible elsewhere, and when we meet one of those forms, the old categories begin to loosen. Heavy and graceful, powerful and vulnerable, distant and somehow intimate, strange and familiar. The whale gathers opposites without hurrying to resolve them. It simply holds them. Human thought often likes clean divisions. We sort creatures into symbols without meaning to, making some animals emblems of danger and others of innocence, some of intelligence and others of instinct, some of grandeur and others of usefulness. The blue whale resists this habit by being too large for a single meaning and too alive to remain a metaphor for long. It slips free. The moment we think we have understood it as pure enormity, its tenderness returns. The moment we think of it as gentleness alone, its unimaginable physical presence returns. The moment we think of it as a relic from another age, it surfaces into the same moonlit present we inhabit now. It is always more than the idea we place upon it. Maybe that is what awe actually is. Not overwhelm, exactly. Not reverence alone. Awe may be what happens when a real thing refuses to fit inside the shape of our understanding, but does so quietly, without violence, simply by continuing to exist in a fuller way than our categories allow. The blue whale has that quality. It exceeds us without argument, and we keep returning to it. Some animals invite attention because they are intricate, others because they are beautiful, elusive, dangerous, or near to us in behavior. The blue whale does something slightly different. It stretches the scale at which we think life can happen, and once that scale has been stretched, the mind does not easily return to its earlier proportions. You think larger afterward, not only in the sense of meters and tons, but in the sense of possibility. If life can become this vast while remaining graceful, if an animal can be so immense and still live by patterns of listening, travel, timing, and patient feeding, then our picture of what counts as a successful life in nature becomes roomier. It gains more shapes. That is quietly comforting. There is relief in discovering that life is not committed to one style of brilliance. Some creatures survive through speed, some through armor, some through concealment, poison, numbers, or cunning. The blue whale survives through a combination so unusual that it almost feels like a meditation on abundance itself. Immense scale, efficient motion, long memory of route and season, and trust in cycles larger than any individual body. A life aligned with recurrence. And yet, no whale is only an example. This matters too. When we speak in broad patterns, there is always a risk of turning a living being into an idea polished smooth for human use. But somewhere in the dark ocean, there is not a concept, only an animal. One body moving through black water, one set of lungs rising and falling, One awareness receiving the sea as sound, pressure, cold, and distance. The real thing is quieter than the symbol. That quietness may be the deepest part of its hold on us. The blue whale is not asking to be seen, not presenting itself, not arranged around human astonishment. And perhaps that makes our astonishment gentler too. We are not being addressed. We are simply encountering a life whose scale changes us a little, only by existing. There is tenderness in being changed that way, not corrected, not instructed, just widened. To spend time thinking about a blue whale is to feel, if only faintly, that the living world is still more spacious than our daily habits allow us to remember. There are forms of being that make our concerns seem smaller, but not meaningless, just smaller, set inside something vast. And maybe that is enough. Not an answer, but a settling. The whale does not tell us what greatness means once and for all. It only suggests that greatness may have more than one temperament, and that one of them is slow, immense, and quiet enough to pass beneath dark water without disturbing the surface very much at all. A different kind of majesty. Not the kind that demands witness. The kind that remains itself whether anyone is looking or not, whether the sea is empty or full of song, whether the night is clear above or clouded over, whether the body is near a coast or far out in open water where distance becomes almost abstract. It goes on, patiently. So perhaps what great size becomes in the blue whale is not spectacle but calm. Not certainty, but dependence held at an extraordinary scale. Not dominion, but participation in a world vast enough to support both enormity and delicacy, both hunger and abundance, both ancient continuity and the vulnerable present. The animal does not solve these opposites, it carries them. And in that carrying, something in us grows quiet. The need to reduce the whale to a lesson begins to loosen. The need to decide exactly what it means begins to drift. What remains is simpler and softer. The fact of a great life moving through deep water, and the feeling that such a life enlarges the world merely by being in it. That feeling can stay unresolved. It may be better that way. Some creatures seem made to sharpen knowledge. Others seem to soften it at the edges, until knowledge becomes attention, and attention becomes a kind of stillness. The blue whale belongs there, in that slower place, where understanding does not close around a thing, but rests beside it, quietly. The water is colder here. Morning is not a bright event. It arrives first as a thinning of darkness above you, a pale looseness in the blue, a distant change that touches your back before it reaches your eyes. You have been moving already, steady and almost without thought, carried by your own long shape through water that yields and holds at once. Nothing begins all at once. You rise because the body keeps its patient rhythm. Before the surface, there is the familiar upward easing, the slow lift through layers of temperature and light, the quiet pressure shift along your skin, the sense of space opening above your head. Your great body does not hurry toward air. It knows the distance, knows the pace, knows how much can be spent and how much must be kept for the next descent. The morning has room for such certainty. Then the surface opens. The first release leaves you in a sudden white burst above the water, a forceful outbreath sent into the cool air, and for a brief moment the sea answers with mist. Then the in-breath comes, deep and practiced, filling you so fully it feels less like taking in air than letting the whole upper world pass through. For an instant, you belong to both places. You settle again. The surface light moves along your back. Air has touched you, and now water receives you once more, closing over your head with its old familiar weight, soft and immense, until the brightness above begins to thin. What was open becomes distant again. Descent is not falling. It is a long decision carried through muscle and bone, a choosing of depth that the body understands completely, the great line of you angling downward, while the heart within you finds its deeper pace, vast and untroubled. Everything slows without becoming weak. Sound remains. It reaches you through the water from beyond what vision can hold, low and far, a shape made of vibration, distant enough to feel more like weather than message at first. Yet you know this kind of presence. The ocean is too large for sight alone, and so it arrives to you through pressure, through tone, through the faint certainty that somewhere in all this vastness, another life also moves. You continue. There is no straight line in the feeling of travel. The route lives in you as something older than a map, a broad persuasion of water, season, memory, light, and the patient geometry of distance. You do not name direction. You inhabit it. The sea changes around you in small ways first. A shift in temperature, a thickness in the water, a grain of life beginning to gather where moments before there was only openness. Your mouth has not opened yet, but already your body recognizes a certain richness ahead, the way a place can feel full before anything is clearly seen. Abundance has its own texture. Light sifts downward. It is not strong here, only enough to reveal suspended brightness in pieces, a dim silver-pink drift, countless small bodies holding close together in the water column. They make the sea look almost particulate, as though the ocean itself has become edible. So much of your day depends on this. You turn through it slowly first. The swarm bends and gathers. It thickens where the water favors it, and your own motion adjusts in response, huge and careful, aligning your body with a field of tiny lives that flicker in the dimness. Your size does not make the moment coarse. It makes it precise. Then effort comes. You drive forward with purpose, and the water that usually parts so quietly before you suddenly becomes something to meet, to push, to take in. Your throat pleats opening and expanding as the sea floods into you with the swarm inside it. For one brief stretch, the giant body spends freely. Then stillness returns. Your mouth closes. Pressure changes. Water presses outward again through the curtain of baleen, leaving the small living brightness behind within reach of your tongue. The movement is ancient in the body now, not a thought, but a sequence so deeply practiced, it feels like the sea teaching itself how to pass through you and leave nourishment behind. Again, and later again. Not rushed, not wasted. Each feeding surge costs something, and so each one matters, shaped by the calm arithmetic of a life too large for carelessness and too patient for panic. Hunger here is not frantic. It is immense and measured. Between those efforts, you glide. There are long intervals when doing almost nothing is the most skillful thing, and your body knows this better than any smaller, quicker creature could. Moving forward on momentum through the dim cold, while the water slips along your sides, and the richness you have taken in begins quietly to become you. Great size asks for a certain peace with intervals. The calls return. One reaches you from far off and low, stretched by distance, altered by travel, yet still carrying the shape of another whale's presence across water too broad to imagine all at once. You answer or do not answer. Either can belong to the day. Connection does not always require nearness. What you feel most is continuity. The sea around you is never empty in the way open space seems empty to landmines. It is threaded with old roots, low voices, remembered seasons, and the faint structured nearness of living things, too small to see clearly until you are among them. Even solitude here has company inside it. You travel through noon almost without noticing noon. Above, the light grows fuller, then diffuses across the skin of the water in broad shifting planes. Below, where you move, brightness is gentler, softened by depth until it loses sharpness and becomes a condition rather than an image. The day passes through gradients. Sometimes you rise again. The pattern returns with its old simplicity, upward easing, surface opening, the clean exchange, mist, air, the brief exposure of your upper body to another world, then the soft reclaiming of the sea. Breath divides the day into quiet chapters. Each one begins and ends the same way. Nothing about repetition feels dull. Your life is made of returns that are never exactly repeated, because the sea itself does not hold still long enough for that, and because each breath, each descent, each mouthful of living water arrives inside a slightly changed body, under a slightly changed sky, within a slightly changed field of sound. Rhythm is not sameness, it is trust. At times the water carries memory, not in pictures, more in the body than in the mind. A warmth once felt alongside another body. The nearness of a mother when the world was first all water and motion and rising for air. The scale of safety before scale meant your own size. Some traces do not need language to remain. You move with them still. The ocean is vast enough that early closeness could seem lost inside it, and yet it is not lost. It lingers as a way of being held by water, a confidence in ascent, a deep bodily certainty that the surface can be found, that the route continues, that life is sustained by rhythms learned beside another. Even now, some part of the day is inherited. Afternoon lengthens almost invisibly. The bright water above begins to lean toward gold where it can, though here below it only grows softer and more diffuse, as if the light has become tired and kind. Your body keeps its pace. You feed when the sea offers enough to matter. You travel when it thins. Distance gathers behind you. Yet it does not feel like accumulation. There are no milestones here, no edges to mark what has been completed. Miles pass as sensation, as pressure and current and the steady unfolding of effort into movement. To live this way is to let progress become nearly indistinguishable from presence. The colder layers return. You enter them and feel the change run along your skin and through your vast insulated body, not as discomfort, but as information, another quiet line in the long conversation between you and depth. The day does not speak in words, it speaks in gradients. Later, the krill are less dense. The sea still holds life, but in looser scatterings now, brightness broken apart, drifting instead of gathered. Your body senses the difference. There is no need to spend greatly where the return has grown thin. Restraint is part of survival too. So you glide more. Feeding gives way to travel, and travel gives way to something even quieter. A long, unbroken motion through darkening water, while the calls around you grow more occasional and more distant, and your own body settles deeper into its efficient, unshowy strength. This is what largeness becomes when no one is watching. A calm use of energy, a refusal of waste. Evening comes first from above. The surface, far overhead now, loses definition. The brighter roof of the world dims into a muted plain, then into something less certain, and the water around you gathers the coming dark without resistance. There is no switch, only a slow settling. Your movements shorten. You still travel, but with less insistence. You rise when you must. You descend again. The day narrows to essentials, and each essential becomes softer at the edges, as though the ocean itself is loosening its hold on detail. A great body can become very quiet. Another voice moves through the distance, low, patient, neither near nor gone. It enters the water around you and passes through you, and for a while you travel with that sound as if alongside a companion you do not need to see. Then it fades, or you move beyond it. Either way, the sea remains held together by such brief, invisible threads. Night deepens. Now the dark is not only beneath you, but around you, above you, within the vast blue-black where the day's last light has thinned beyond use. You know this world too. Vision loosens its claim, and other certainties remain. Pressure, rhythm, motion, the old map of your body in water. You rise once more. The air is colder now when it meets you. The exhale opens in the night, white and brief. The inhale is deep, deliberate, sufficient. For a moment, the stars may be above, though you do not need them. Then the sea closes over you again, and that is enough. Downward now. Not urgently, not far for the sake of far. Simply into the darker, quieter layers, where movement can become smaller, and the body can carry itself with less demand, where the day no longer asks to be answered with effort. Rest begins before stillness does. Your heart finds the slower measure. Inside all that enormity, the rhythm deepens and widens, patient as if time itself has entered the body and spread out there. What kept you moving all day does not disappear. It settles. Strength remains, but softened. The water holds your heat close. Blubber, muscle, blood, breath, all the old architectures of a life shaped for this place continue their silent work while you do less and less, until simply existing in the dark feels like enough labor for one day. Much of being alive is maintenance no one sees, so you drift between motions, a slight correction, a slow glide, then less. The vast body that crossed great reaches of ocean and took whole swarms into itself now asks only for depth, for steadiness, for the quiet agreement between weight and buoyancy. Night has a way of making all creatures simpler. Nothing is demanded. No burst of speed. No great turn. No urgent search. The water is dark, and you are within it, and your own size, which by day can feel like movement made visible, now becomes something closer to landscape. A long, warm presence suspended in cold immensity. You could almost be part of the sea's own thinking. And then even that thought fades. There is only the body, only the dark, only the slow continuity of being carried by water that does not end at the limits of your sight. Around you, the ocean remains vast, hidden, and still. You ease into near motionlessness. A little forward drift remains, a faint lift and settle, the smallest adjustments. But the day is over in all the ways that matter, and your great frame hangs in the quiet depth with a gentleness that seems impossible for something so large. Yet this has always been your way. You rest. The dark presses softly along your sides. Sound has grown sparse. Light is gone. The roots, the feeding grounds, the distant voices, the breaths, the long miles, all of them have folded into this one simple fact. For now, you are safe in deep water, and stillness is enough. You remain there, vast, quiet, warm within the cold, and the night goes on. And in the quiet, after that long drifting day, the blue whale returns to being what it has always been. Not only an animal, but a vast and steady thought in the sea. It is difficult even now to hold all of it at once. A body larger than memory, living on small bright swarms, crossing distances that seem made for weather rather than for flesh, sending sound through water too wide and dark to see across. And yet, the mind does not need to hold it all. It can simply rest beside it. That may be part of the comfort. The sea still carries lives that exceed easy measure. It still holds softness at great scale, patience in motion, and ancient forms that go on without announcing themselves, as if the deepest wonders were never meant to be loud. The blue whale becomes one quiet answer to a question we do not often ask clearly enough. How large can life become and still remain gentle, very large, and also very calm? What makes this creature linger in thought is not size alone. It is the strange joining of opposites, immense weight and graceful movement, a giant body sustained by tiny lives, a presence so powerful and yet so unhurried that it seems to move through the world without needing to prove anything. In other words, greatness here is not noise. It is depth. That is why it settles so softly in the imagination. A long body glides. A breath rises and disappears. A call moves outward through dark water and goes on traveling long after the animal itself has passed. Even its lineage feels less like a story of conquest than of return, as if life once stepped onto land, then slowly remembered another older rhythm beneath it and went back into the water. There is something reassuring in that. Not because everything in the ocean is safe, and not because the world has become simple, but because some forms of life remain patient beyond our usual pace of thought. The blue whale reminds us that existence can be immense without becoming frantic, and ancient without becoming distant. It is still here. And now there is nothing more you need to do with that thought. You do not need to carry its scale any longer, or picture the open water, or follow the routes of migration, or listen for a voice moving through the deep. You can let all of it drift farther away now, the way sound does beneath the surface, growing softer not because it is gone, but because it no longer needs your attention. Let it go. Let your jaw unclench a little more. Let your hands rest open with nothing to hold. Let the muscles of your face soften. Let your body feel heavy where it is supported. There is nowhere to be now, nothing required, no task waiting inside this moment. The night does not need anything from you, and neither does the sea. It goes on in its own vast way, dark and quiet and patient, while you remain here at the shore of sleep, with no need to follow any farther. You can simply settle. If thoughts are still passing through, let them pass slowly. If some part of the mind is still awake, it does not need to be corrected. Even wakefulness can drift when nothing is asked of it. Even now, with your eyes heavy and your body growing more still, you do not need to arrive anywhere all at once. Rest can come gradually. That is how the ocean teaches calmest of all. Not by stopping, but by continuing at a pace so deep and steady that resistance begins to loosen on its own. Wave by wave, breath by breath, thought by thought, the body remembers that it was never meant to remain braced forever. It can soften now. And somewhere far beyond this room, Beyond any wall or window, beyond the familiar edges of human noise, the sea holds its quiet immensities still. Beneath the surface, in water dark enough to hide almost anything, a blue whale moves through its ancient element with no audience, no announcement, and no need to be seen in order to be real. It moves. That is enough for the whale. And for this night, it is enough for you. Good night.